Good morning, Raptor freaks. Alexi Otts here. Saturday morning, we lost the Philadelphia 76ers on Friday night. A valiant effort in the second half after a very, very, very poor second quarter where we let them score. Like, they got 77 points in the first half. That's insane. That's crazy. But being down 20 at halftime, we made a very valiant comeback and got it down to as little as two with minutes to go, but still didn't execute and win the game in the end. A tough game for a lot of reasons. The game was itself, and the game is disappointing, but in a lot of ways, the game wasn't as bad as what happened before the game. And we'll definitely be talking about this today a lot. And we'll get into it as soon as you guys bring it up in the comments. But yeah, I'm more mad about that press conference before the game than I am about the game against Philadelphia itself. So let's get in the comments right away. And I see that our Philadelphia friend, Let Me Cook, is first in line today at the comments section. And you know what? Rightfully so. A fantastic effort by your team last night. They're clicking on a lot of good cylinders right now. There is a very difficult puzzle to be solved when you line up across from the Philadelphia 76ers. That their three best players are so different than each other that they really do complement each other in a lot of good ways, and they really are using them in good ways. It really is. Embiid has gotten so much better. I can remember two preseasons ago, I watched Joel Embiid before the season even started for an hour in the Scotiabank Arena working out in a preseason game, and he didn't even play. And I was marveling at some of his offensive moves and how his range had extended and that all these other things. And this is before last year. And he has continued on this growth that has just grown and grown and grown. And now he's just very dangerous. His three-point shot is something that you have to respect. He has a really good jump shot, and he can make it from pretty much any distance out to the three-point shot. And then, of course, he can be dominant and go to the basket at any time. So I have to give a little bit of respect and love towards the Sixers for just their year and how they're doing this year. They're a very strong team, and in some ways, I'm impressed. I have to say I'm impressed. Let Me Cook is saying I missed some of the game with work, but the Sixers were struggling 103 to 101. Philly with 6 minutes to go. The Raptors didn't score again till 148 left. Hurt. That definitely hurt. Siakam and Fred going 10 for 32 combined didn't help either. Yeah, I'm disappointed in both of them. These leaders for our team just did not step up in their part. The other guys did really well. In fact, my 3 stars for the game for the Raptors are Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, and Jakob Poeltl. And I wish I could say that Siakam and Fred stepped up a little bit better in this game, but they did not shoot well, and they did not score well in a lot of ways. And it's too bad. This is from Krathika of TSN. Once again, I really like her stuff on her Twitter. She's saying this is at that point that Let Me Cook is mentioning. The Raptors, after getting to 103 to 101, when we were down by 2 in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes to go, this is what our possessions looked like afterwards. A Van Vliet offensive foul. Well, we know that was bullshit. Remember, that was the play where he pushed Maxey just slightly. Maxey over-embellished the arm, and they went for it and gave Van Vliet an offensive foul. Now, this was in the period of time of the game where David Guthrie and the crew were starting to do some ref manipulation to try and help the Sixers at that point by giving us some really bad calls. And that call in particular was one of them. There were a few of them, and I'm going to say them in just a sec. Anunoby got a block. He got blocked. Then Van Vliet got an offensive foul again. And then Van Vliet got a bad pass turnover. Then Siakam missed a fadeaway. Then Van Vliet missed a 3. Barnes got the offensive rebound. But Barnes went the layup. He got blocked. Then Anunoby missed another 3. And Barnes made a layup. And that was the first made basket in a while. And then Siakam missed a pull-up. And then the end of the game, it's 112 to 103. The 2 points being made only by a Scottie Barnes layup in that whole period of time to finish the game in the last 6 minutes. They scored 2 points. Meanwhile, the Sixers scored 11. And that's taking it home to get the victory for Philadelphia. Let Me Cook's also saying, if you told me before the game, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey all combined for 56 points, I'd say y'all are coming home with a dub. I don't catch a lot of Raps games, but the best Barnes I saw this year, he was phenomenal. Yeah, okay, let's parse this all out and take a look at this. Yeah, we held them lower than their normal scores for sure. We look at Joel Embiid and we're like, we held him to 25 points. This man's been scoring 40-point games, 30 points at least, and we held him 25. That's pretty damn good. James Harden had like 18 points at the half, and he only had 23 by the end of the game. He was absolutely their best player. And on the court in the first half, he was dealing, whether it was his assists or himself, looking like old James from Houston Rockets, doing a couple of his old offensive moves. We got to see vintage James Harden for a little bit last night. And it really was him controlling the second quarter where they went crazy and outscored us 46-27. And that is the quarter where we lost. Well, you can't afford to do a quarter like that and think you can come back against a top Eastern Conference team like the Sixers. We almost did, though, and that's crazy testament to us also. But yeah, Scottie Barnes has been on a tear recently, let me cook. He's been fantastic. And he's actually really expanded just in the last couple games. He's had some very, very strong games. Scottie, our first star on our side in a losing effort, 13 of 19 shooting. Fantastic shooting. 13 of 19. 3 of 4 from the free throw line. 7 offensive rebounds. Scottie's out there working. 9 rebounds altogether. 8 assists, 4 steals, 1 block, 29 points, a +1. That's fantastic work by Mr. Barnes. We can't fault him. He's actually working all 4 quarters now. Instead of waiting around to get it going in the fourth, you can see Scottie's very much engaged and concentrating and involved in the game fully. And I like seeing that. Finally, Scott, you're getting to new levels of how you approach the game, and it's showing in the output and the things that you're doing out on the court. You keep going, Scott. You're going to continue to get more and more and shine more and more. Watch. We're proud of you. Second star, OG Anunoby, 6 of 12 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3. We really needed those threes. Once again, the Raptors, horrible at the free throw line, and they shied away from it in the second quarter because they were so bad in the first. They only made 1 3-pointer in the first half. And then, there's some scrappiness in the end, but we ended up with 8 3-pointers for the whole entire game. That's awful. We're just not getting 3-point shots and taking them. And it really probably has a lot to do with Gary Trent Jr. being out, which sucks. But OG getting 3 threes last night was really key because nobody else was really hitting threes otherwise for the most part. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, a block, 17 points for OG on 6 of 12 shooting. That's not bad. I don't mind that game. He played a good two-way game because he was on top of things on defense also with really tough assignments, switching in a moment's notice from guarding people like James Harden to Joel Embiid to Tyrese Maxey, jumping all around with different people. OG was able to just switch. And that's not easy. You telling me that there's many guys in this league that can take on those 3 big-time Sixers and guard each one of them one-on-one? No, there's not many dudes in this league that can do that effectively on each one of them. And OG is one of those very few people in this league. Jakob in the loss on his Facebook saying, good fight after being down 20 at halftime. Short and sweet by Jakob And he got another double-double last night, 6 of 8 shooting. 4 offensive rebounds, 10 rebounds altogether, 2 assists, 14 points for Jakob So 14 and 10 stat line. I don't mind that at all. I actually was really happy with that. But yeah, this is, these are our 3 best guys from the starters. And the other 2 guys they were pretty. Let Me Cook's also saying, I wish you guys the best of luck for the rest of the year and playoffs. That is, unless you play us. 2022 Raps won season series 3-1, and now the Sixers return the favor 3-1 this year. Love the rivalry. There you go. Listen, with all due respect, Let Me Cook, we've appreciated your presence in this channel, even with this. We can be big enough losers in this instance, and you're being a very respectful winner. So I appreciate your patronage here. And yeah, it is a great rivalry. It's a lot of fun. And hopefully, we'll see more of it in the years to come, maybe even in the postseason. But I appreciate your comments. I really do. Stillman's here. Good to see Stillman 65. Always good to see our friend. Let's see what Stillman's saying today. Good morning, all. Good effort by our Raptors to get back in this one. Too bad they couldn't finish with a win, but carry on to Charlotte. Nick dropping a big nugget on us pregame. What's up with that? I'm glad you asked this. And that is the perfect question. What is up with that, Nick? What the fuck is going on with you, bro? I spent all day yesterday trying to put that fire out with the smoke and said where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, I was hoping there wouldn't be fire, but god damn it, Nick, did you have to go and make it so that there is fire? Well, there is. And this really mystifies me. Like, I know Nick Nurse is a smart person, and he wouldn't do things like this without really thinking about it. So I think this was very calculated, and I really pissed off at him about it. Like, seriously, once again, the Raptor Freak is all about what's good for the Raptors. And I'm not necessarily what's good for Nick Nurse if it's going to be like this, because this is not good for the Raptors. Michael Grange this morning has a piece, and it's very on point. And, when I'm agreeing with Grange as much as this, and I'm not agreeing with Nick Nurse, there's something really wrong. It's bizarro world. Well, Nick Nurse didn't have to address speculation about his future with the Raptors, but he did, putting the issue on the front burner from now until it all gets decided. That's the thing, Nick. That interview you did before the Philadelphia game, you should have saved that one until we were done, bro. What are you doing? Like, seriously, this is definitely the writing on the wall. And now I have to do a complete 180 on my opinions about you and the rumors yesterday. Now, I still don't believe the Ime Udoka rumor that, there's an off chance that this could be true, that Masai is really close with him and that he is somebody he's interested in. But I still don't really want him for our team. I think that we can find a better coach somewhere else. In fact, I'd kind of prefer to look within. And maybe we get Earl Watson to just get promoted to being our head coach. But this is stupid, Nick. Like, seriously, in some ways, what you did before the game is irreversible. You fucking went down that road now, and I don't think you're coming back. And I hate this so much because you really kind of listen, this kind of smacks of Rich Paul Klutch kind of bullshit, like some sort of tactical strategy for arguing a contract, but it doesn't also at the same time. In fact, this smacks of a broken relationship that is not repairable, and that the writing's on the wall and you're done. And I hate that. In fact, some of your language in that press conference very much tells us that you're done, bro. You've already checked out and you don't want to coach this team anymore. And I'm so disappointed in this. I very much am. It's not just because I want to be right from yesterday. It's just that I'm disappointed that you had such stupid judgment to do this before the game yesterday. Like, seriously, hold on to that shit. It's proprietary knowledge and keep it under wraps. It's not a service to your youngsters that you coach on your team. It's not a service to people like me that are passionate fans for this team and want to see them have the best chance to go out. Now, if you don't give a shit, if you're signaling where you're at right now, then why should any of us give a shit? Why should any of the players give a shit? And why should anybody watching the games give a shit? When we know that the coach that's leading the team is a lame duck. In some ways, he may not really give a shit about what he's doing with this team at this point. I mean, it's almost like an afterthought. You said afterwards, it's like, yeah, I got to take a couple weeks and think about my future. It's been 10 years. It's been a long, great 10 years. Already talking like you're gone. And then your afterthought is, oh, but I still need to get these guys as much playoff experience as deep as I can with this young core. That was like the part you should have said first, fuckface, instead of fucking going into your whole fucking thing about this. Now, listen, I know this season, I can speculate about what's gone wrong for Nick Nurse in different ways. I'm really pretty sure that what happened with him this year was he had a personal tragedy, a thing that happened to him sometime around December when he had to leave the team for personal reasons. Either there was something that happened with somebody's health in his family. It could be one of his parents. It could be a sibling. It could be anybody in his family. Or did he leave the team at that time because there was a huge blow up between him and the management, Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster, and that they were like not seeing eye to eye, and he got that pissed off that he left the team for a while and they had to reconcile things and come back. Now I have to winders this shit in negative ways because you have let it be known that you're not happy here, and that now we are probably going to be getting a new coach for next season. In some ways, so be it. This is the thing. This is why I don't react to smoke. I react to fire. And when something comes out of somebody's face, when it comes out of their damn mouth themselves, then I have to believe it. And unfortunately, Nick, you put it out there, and now we have to believe it. I am so disappointed in you, bro. I really thought you were a smarter person than this. I would call you, but I'm so mad. I think I'd cuss you out on the phone this morning if I called you right now. So I'm going to stay away from calling you right now. I can't believe he did this. Seriously. This is in some ways sabotaging the rest of our run. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some poor efforts in the last few games of the season from our team, just like that second quarter last night. And I would be very surprised if we get out of the play-in, guys. I'm not going to lie. That, what's the point? In some ways, he's lame duck, just like a president. And that, you know what? Let's kind of, in some ways, we want to turn the page and get to the next chapter now. Now that you're signaling that you're not here with us anymore, Nick. Now, I know you didn't explicitly say where you would change your future of coming here, but you wouldn't have said all this shit. Like, are you that uncomfortable or that unhappy with what's happening that you couldn't wait to talk about this in like 2 weeks? That you had to fucking do it right now, before the game last night? Is this just some cruel April Fool's joke? Because it's April the 1st today, Nick Nurse, that you're pulling on us. Oh, no, wait, what I said before the Philadelphia game last night, it was a joke, y'all. It was a April Fool's, haha. Well, it was on March the 31st, motherfucker. It wasn't on April the 1st when you said that shit. So in some ways, I feel like that was not an April Fool's joke. It isn't, obviously. Oh, my gosh. Now you can speculate into things like, all right, maybe Masai and Nick aren't getting along. That I think that's really where the problem is. There may be problems on the team with connection, sure. And the knock on Nick this season and what Masai said was that he needs to develop the young players better. That he's not bringing up youngsters like Delano Banton and Christian Koloko up in the right kind of way and using them to effectively develop them better. And I'll agree with this knock. In some ways, look, Nick, now that it's like this, bro, I'm going to start talking about all of your biggest weaknesses as your coach of the Raptors. I would hide them for you because I'm that kind of guy and I look out. But now at this point, yeah, we're going to talk about what you do. And that's pissing me off more on blast as far as like riding the starters too much, not developing your bench, not doing stuff like that. Yeah, these have been big weaknesses. And maybe it's time, just like when Ujiri said, Casey, you are not taking me far enough in the playoffs. You're not a good enough playoff coach. We need to go a new direction. Well, maybe Nick Nurse is not doing a good enough job developing our young team, and that Masai Ujiri has made the same decision, that Nick Nurse is not the right coach for where we are with our team at this point in the stage of this thing. And that maybe he put some things on Nick. He said, if you don't do this and do this season, then I'm sorry, Nick. We're not probably going to want to extend your contract or sign you to another year. Because technically Nick Nurse is under contract for next season still also, y'all. That's the thing. He could go for an extension this summer, but he's still technically supposed to coach us next year. But I don't think that's going to happen. And it's crazy because we think about the Team Canada stuff. We think about all the things where this is interconnected. And I'm like, what the fuck is going to happen now? Like, in some ways, it's a letdown for young people like SGA and Jamal Murray. Like, what is going to happen with Team Canada? And can we feel any strength in that? In some ways, the reverberations of Nick Nurse's press conference yesterday don't just reverberate throughout the Toronto Raptors franchise, but also through the Team Canada program. And I have no fucking idea what's going to happen with this, seriously. But in a lot of ways, I think it's been signaled that he's done. Seriously, I hate to say this. But the chances of Nick Nurse being our coach next season just changed completely to 180, the opposite of what I thought yesterday and said on the stream, because he said it from his own mouth, what he said yesterday before the game. Oh, my gosh, I'm so disappointed with him. I really am. Let's see. Tom Duke saying, no morning today. I blame Fred and Pascal. We know what our problems are, but also I see the positives of our team construction. I also think Nick is saying he will take the blame for the season results. man, I don't even care at this point. I just think that this was really poor timing and really selfish in some ways. Why he did this? You didn't need to do this. Coaches are supposed to be strong and hold proprietary knowledge. Y'all didn't let us know that Kyle Lowry was hurt the whole 2019 championship run. We didn't find out till later. You can keep this shit under wraps, Nick. And why the fuck did you come out and talk about it in Philadelphia, of all places, right before the fucking game? Just because the Philly press came in and baited you into it? Or did you feel bad because people were saying that Doug Smith was a crazy old coot and that he was spreading rumors? Well, you wanted to come in and say, oh, Doug was right, because I was like, this is this and this. Either way, it's all fucked up and full of shit. And why couldn't you wait 2 weeks? Seriously, it really, honestly, I'm so disappointed in Nick Nurse. And in some ways, this will taint how I look at him, because I do care about how people leave our organization. I like them to leave on good terms and in good ways. And in some ways, this is kind of fucked up what he's doing. It's not even that I think he wants to go coach somewhere else. I could speculate all kinds of different ways and winders the shit. It could be that he had a loved one who was very sick earlier this season, and he had to feel torn because he's far away here in Canada for being closer to where they were. I don't know. There could be all kinds of crazy shit. Maybe him and Masai are not getting along because of what Masai said. It's like Masai can go from comparing Nick Nurse to Messi and Kobe at the beginning of the season, say the other team's dream of getting him as a coach. Well, somehow, some way, they got to Nick Nurse, and now he's not really there's something fucked up going on. Maybe it's because Nick Nurse realizes that winning in Toronto is so fucking hard because the referees are screwing us and the NBA makes a hard schedule against us. And maybe he wants to go an easy route. Maybe he doesn't like coaching such a difficult challenge to coach the Toronto Raptors in the situation that they are. Maybe that's part of what turns him off from being here. I don't know. This is all so crazy and mystifying to me. You could tell that Nick was agitated and angry a lot of this season, but we didn't totally understand where it was all coming from and why. Maybe it has something to do with the players, and the players just aren't getting together and doing things the way that he would like as professionals, as far as connecting and playing together on the court, because we have seen a disconnect between the players in certain ways, and maybe he's trying to manage things. I see Thad Young's behavior right now as being very telling, that it's, in the last week, all of a sudden, these guys just gave up. That is very much dropped the facade of being a team leader and being a vet on the team. And now he's just grumpy and upset. Now things are just a little unsettled and weird on the team. They seem like they're going through the motions at this point. And I hate that, because just a little while ago, I went to a Miami game and they were kicking ass and they looked like they were ready for a good stretch run. Well, it's really fucked up and crazy how quickly this all can turn around and be like how it is, just because fucking Nick Nurse and some stupid ass shit he said in the interview. You really should have waited, Nick. What the fuck? Why couldn't you wait? Did Rich Paul tell you to fucking say that shit? Did he? Seriously. Was it Klutch in your new representation is fucking telling you how to act and do this kind of shit as a negotiation ploy? Well, in some ways, you've now got yourself a problem with Raptors Nation that you didn't even need to have. And, man, you're so good at being patient and talking about shit at the right time, but you didn't do it yesterday. There was no patience shown. And is it the situation that bad that you had to express yourself like that at the microphones and say all that shit out there? Because you got Woj bomb, motherfucker. You are on the front page of ESPN talking about how you want to see where you're at after the season now. What an unnecessary distraction for the rest of the season. Is it because you wanted to make it all about yourself, Nick? Why the fuck did you do this? Seriously. I am mystified. I am angry, and I'm upset. In fact, you know what? Listen, in some ways, all right, so be it. Let's go ahead and get to the next chapter of Raptors basketball and see who's leading it and see what the potential is with our young badasses like Scottie Barnes and OG Anunoby. We'll go from here. We'll see if somebody can get something a little bit more out of the team than Nick Nurse at this point. Because seriously, this is the writing on the wall. This dude's not coming back. And he's an idiot for doing this with 6 games to go in the season still. What an idiot. Oh, my gosh. Let's see. Space Cadet saying we lost this game in the second quarter. we were down by 1 going into the second quarter, and like 5 minutes in the second, we were down by 20. Yeah, the defensive effort just like went out the window, and we didn't play any defense. Plus, listen, Philadelphia was scorching in the first half last night, shooting like over 70% from the field, and they just absolutely killed it. Now, let's talk about the plumbing company. In the third quarter, to start the second half, we didn't let them score for the first 5 minutes of the second half. If you go and look at the graph on ESPN's box score, that line is straight for them. They did not score at all for a while in the second half, and that was badass. I really like seeing that, and that was part of how we climbed back into it. And that was very like noble effort and really good, showing good defense and some good stuff in the third quarter and the fourth. I mean, if you look at it, we only let them score 40 points in this the second half after letting them score 46 in the second quarter altogether. We let them score 6 more points in the second quarter than they scored in the entire second half. That is messed up, and that is crazy. You have one really bad quarter, it destroys your chances to win the game. And that is exactly what happened there. I mean, on the other side, James Harden, fantastic. 9 of 14, 3 of 6 from 3, 11 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 23 points. To me, he's the player of the game. Joel Embiid with double-double also, 25 points, 7 of 13, 11 of 12 at the free throw line, 12 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. Yeah, just good stuff from their side. And then, Maxey only got 13. It's not like they had a super abundant scoring on their side, although their bench was way more factor in the game than our bench was. All their guys getting baskets and making their shots. And meanwhile, we only get like 13 points off the bench and limited minutes from Precious and Christian. And Chris was out there for a bit, but he honestly 3 rebounds between those 3 guys in 32 minutes total. That's messed up that those guys off the bench only got 3 rebounds out of there. So we had no bench production. We had no production, very good production in some ways from Fred and Pascal. Fred shooting 5 of 17, 3 for 10 from 3, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 19 points. His stat line looks better than it did at halftime. He did kind of clean it up by the end of the game a bit, but still 6 turnovers to 6 assists. And some of those turnovers by Fred were very late turnovers that absolutely killed our chances of winning. And I feel bad because I know that it's not totally Fred's fault. And in some ways, that stuff's going to happen at those times in the game, but it just sucks because I'd like to see him get success in those moments. And Siakam, same thing. He failed with all the shots he took at the end of the game. He didn't make them. And 14 points for Siakam in a big game like this against Philadelphia. Yeah, we need you to do more, Siakam. 5 of 15 from the field, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, a minus 15. Siakam had the worst plus minus of all the Raptors last night. It's just a sad day. It's a sad game. And it's like, I'm not even that upset about the game because honestly, I feel like the guys did really well in most of the game, other than the second quarter. And I'm really mad at Nick. Nick is the person I'm really upset with right now. Let's see. Nameless is saying, just unlucky one. Couldn't hit any shots early, and they shot 80%. Hard to win like that no matter who you play. Yeah, and honestly, it's crazy how we're playing these games recently, and we're being very competitive without having any kind of juice on the three-point line. Like, absolutely no juice on the three-point line in a couple of these games recently, where we're like 1 for 16 or 2 for 20 at halftime or something like that. It's really, really crazy. We're going into a gunfight with knives, basically, is how it feels, because we don't have good three-point shooting. You look and see James Harden, and he's doing these crazy shots where he's like leaning into people, and then he's shooting with one hand, and he's putting in 3-pointers. He's doing all that crazy shit. And you're like, damn, I wish we had a hooper that will just drop threes in like James does. That's crazy. He's such a good scorer. Let's see. Callie's here. Good to see Callie Mayer. Well, we fought back, but that second quarter was brutal. Frustrated with Pascal. I think OG or Scottie should have the ball more down the stretch. Yeah. I mean, are we not making smart decisions? Is a lot of this problems like, is this going to be some weird thing where we magically get another coach and all these weird problems that our team has had like for the last 2 years is going to magically disappear? and we're going to see way better decisions, way better team play, way better shooting, way better all this stuff. Like, seriously, what is the Nick Nurse factor going to be? And what are we going to see when he's gone with what we get from the new coach that comes in and establishes things for next season? See, this is the thing you didn't realize, Nick. When you do what you did yesterday, where a lot of us are going to start moving on from you. Even if you're not ready to leave, and even if you haven't decided, you can't jerk around on this shit. You got to be totally ready before you publicly acknowledge what you're thinking, to be ready for what that swings with everybody else when they think about it. And at this point, in some ways, I'm ready to move on, bro. I'm as mad and sad as it makes me, is that, like, we can't have this anymore. Like, obviously this is broken with you as the coach. And yeah, I can't believe that as of today, yesterday I did so much saying, yeah, he's ensconced, he's our Spolstra. And now I'm turning around and saying, you know what, I'm ready for the new one to come in. And I'm excited to see the possibilities with somebody else running this team. I never thought that that would happen today. And I'm so mad that it did, because it didn't. It didn't have to happen this way. It should have been the way it was going, fine. And then you could have said this shit right as soon as we didn't have any games to play, and I wouldn't have a problem with you. But because there's still games to play, you've made a distraction, an unnecessary dumpster fire. And now I got to be pissed off at you for it, because this isn't good for our team. Jimmy's here. Good to see Jimmy. Was really hoping for a better effort, especially that second quarter. Me too, Lex. I'm upset about the interview before the game. Really deflating. Like, I don't get this, man. Like, that does not help the team. Like, this, Nick. You're smart. In some ways, I feel like you doing that in some ways is like getting jabbed back at maybe Masai or Bobby. I don't know. Like, I'm so mystified by this. So be it. That's what a lot of people are saying today. So be it. It's disappointing. Whatever. I thought you were in the Arkells, bro. What are you going to do if you're not in Toronto to be in the Arkells, man? What are you doing, bro? You idiot. You idiot. In some ways, I noticed this season, the beginning of the season, the first half of the season, they did the activities. Like, they went to the sick kids hospital. They went to different places as a team and did events. Well, in the second half of the season, they ain't done jack shit. And there's been times where I thought that the team needs to go and do like a team trip. Like, they go to the Rocky statue, or they do things like go to the Tupac Museum and get like some team good vibes, because Coach Nurse gets them to go do an event like that. Well, they haven't done an event like that in a while. And I've wondered, like, does Nick Nurse even give a shit at this point as far as like keeping the team together or doing different things? No. In some ways, I'm getting it now, that this guy, in some ways, he's checked out at some point. In some certain ways, he has checked out on our season. And I hate that. In some ways, it's like they put a challenge in front of us this season. A really tough schedule, bad refereeing, injuries happen, all kinds of stuff. You mention it, Nick. We're talking about how difficult the season is. Well, you didn't survive it, bro. You're supposed to be tough and go through the whole gauntlet and not let it shake you, or it shook you now. And that sucks, because in some ways, like, look, this is what they wanted. They wanted to mess our good thing up in Toronto. And well, they have. In some ways, they have. But this is the great thing for us, the Raptor fans, the Raptor freaks. Well, we have opportunity, we have promise, but in some ways it's sad, because like we did have a really good thing with him being our head coach, but now I guess it's not going to happen no more. It's just what it is. You should have gone and waited until the end of the season. Oh my gosh. G saying Scottie's shot keeps developing well, and he played high level against the Sixers. Yeah. Yeah. If you look at Scottie against the Sixers last night, and you look at his games against the Sixers last year, he was very sheepish and not very he was timid as far as like trying to establish and go for scores himself. Well, not last night. In fact, he was very determined and like forthright and coming and saying, I'm taking this. I'm going to take this shot. I'm going to make this. You got Yang on my back. Okay, that's a green light for me to go take this mismatch and score on him. He's recognizing and reading the court way better. Fred said in his interview this week that as Scottie reads the play on the court faster and stays ahead of the game, that's what all the greats do, the better and better he's going to get. And that's the thing about him, is he has to be ahead of things, because he can. He has that aptitude to see 3 steps ahead of what the play is developing on the court. And the more and more experience he has, the more reading of that kind of stuff, the more success he's going to have picking it all apart and doing exactly what he wants to do on the court. So I'm excited about the prospects and the progress that Scottie's been showing. And yes, he was our leading scorer once again last night. And that may be the trend of the future in some ways. That may very well be the trend of the future. Monique saying, what a game by Scottie. A full 48, please. Wake up, bench. Yeah, Scottie wasn't bad. 40 minutes for him. Minutes police will be definitely on Nick Nurse for playing 42 minutes of Fred and Pascal, an inefficient game. OG 41. So he really did play the starters, play the hell out of the starters last night. They played so much last night. And yeah, that's tough. I mean, some people are upset that he didn't play Koloko in the first half. And specifically, that they didn't play Koloko during that second quarter where things were getting out of hand. That in some ways we saw Koloko come out there, and he was very much a great defensive presence as far as deterring people from coming in the basket. And he was very sound. In some ways, we see intangibles with Koloko that are hard to totally explain with words or stats. That there are things that he does on the court that are unspoken that are very added bonus. And, maybe that's true. Maybe Nick should have played him in the second quarter. I mean, you can't fault him for playing Precious. Precious has had great success against the Sixers in the last year, especially in the playoffs last year. But in some ways, Precious was a dud. And that's why he went to Koloko in the second half. And then, of course, Jeffrey Doughton barely played in the second half. They rode those starters so hard. And in some ways, that's part of the reason why these guys have no juice to finish the game out and win. I mean, they have to work so hard to overcome the 20-point deficit that by the time they get to the end, the Sixers have been kind of rested and they can really close things out defensively and stop us and win the game for themselves. So in a lot of ways, there was a lot against us. The refs were fucked up. We saw that one play where the Sixer player went over Chris Boucher's back and they set out of bounds on Chris. That was the wrong play. There was a couple of really bad plays like that. There was the 24-second shot clock violation that ran out, but they should have just let us run in transition going down the court. There was the offensive fouls called on Fred that I mentioned just a little while ago. There were a lot of fishy plays right around a certain point in the fourth quarter that kind of made it hard for us. That was that resistance from the refs that you got to play through and beat and overcome. But we couldn't beat the refs in those situations. That deflated us because maybe we were still really tired from making up the deficit from the third quarter. So that's what I'm saying. You add in all that stuff. Plus, you got Joel Embiid and James Harden to deal with, and then you got David Guthrie doing shady shit in the fourth quarter with some of the calls. That was definitely an over the back on the getting that rebound with Chris Boucher. And when the ball was given to the Sixers, that was fucked up. That was a very fucked up play. It should have been our ball at that point. There were a couple of those, and they did it really fishy, where there was a timeout called and then they come back and, oh yeah, I forgot that we just stole the ball from you. It should have been an over the back call, but they weren't giving us calls. They don't respect us in that kind of way with the foul calls. And maybe that's why Nick Nurse is sick of coaching our team, because he feels like it's not fair. And in some ways that's really upsetting him too much. And he's like, I can't coach Toronto anymore. They don't give us any calls and they're so unfair. That may be a factor and part of the reason why, but probably not the main reason why. Nako's saying that comment Nick made, I feel should have been said at the end of the season. Joel and Giannis are the most dangerous players in the East. Scottie, Jakob, and OG were our best players. Good instincts from Koloko. All right, Nako, good comment. I can't disagree with any of it. Yeah, it should have been totally made after the season. What are you doing, Nick Nurse? Seriously, why did you say that? I know you're very open and honest with the reporters, but you didn't need to be that open and honest right now with what is going on with this. In fact, in some ways, you're very much like signaling to everybody to turn off the Raptors season. Why should any of us want to continue to watch y'all other than diehards like us? A lot of casual fans will be like, they hear that from Nick Nurse and be like, yeah, they're not going anywhere this postseason. So we might as well just turn off the TV or turn the channel to the Blue Jays or watch the Leafs playoff run. It's very fishy and very, very destructive what Nick Nurse did yesterday. And that makes me so mad. It's weird. Like, listen, Nick, you hypocrite. At the beginning of the season, You went on and on and on about energy, about how everybody on your team with your coaches and everybody like need to be cognizant of the energy they're giving to the players. And that if you're bad energy, if you're giving bad energy to players, he doesn't want you on your coaching staff, that he'll fire you and get rid of you and you'll be gone. And you know what? You honestly were not following your rule yourself. And it may not be totally your fault that you may have had like really difficult year personally for reasons that we do not know, and that bled over to maybe you having bad energy whether you liked it or not, and that in some ways your energy has not been good this year, Nick. Like there's some stress and some crazy things you've been going through that have bled into how you've done the job. You've been very, very emotional, very angry, very like expressive and fighting in games this year. And I understand. I get it. I like you fighting for us on the sideline with the referees and getting our politicking for us. But at the same time, there's unnecessary negative energy around you that I could tell may have been hurting the team in some ways. Whether you may slightly throw a player under the bus in an interview during the season, whether it was like you just being like a hothead, or who knows? I have no idea. I can only speculate. But in some ways, it seems like you didn't follow your own rule from the beginning of the season, where you said, I don't want any bad energy on this team. And I want all of my coaches to have a cognizance about their energy and what they give to the players. And that if you're not giving positive energy, I don't want you around my team. Well, Nick, did you follow your own rule this year? Is what I'm going to ask you right now. Did you follow your own rule? Because in some ways, I don't know if you did. And I want to be fair. It may be that you couldn't because of personal reasons that you were dealing with that nobody knows about. But still, in some ways, that is something I'm wondering about, because I don't know if you did. I don't know if you did. Let's see. All right, we're at Infamous here. Infamous saying, morning, this game hurt. This was the first game I was really disappointed in Pascal. These big games, he's got to show up. Yeah. I mean, but who do we blame? I mean, we have a fall guy now. Trust me, as the positive Raptors fan, to protect everybody else, and I will dump everything on Nick Nurse at this point. That is, listen, if he's on his way out, he can take as much garbage out with him to the street if he's going to be going on his way out. So, well, I'll say this. This is Nick Nurse's fault because he overplays Pascal for most of the game, and he's too tired at the end of the game to make the shots. Yeah, I wouldn't say that on a normal day. I wouldn't put Nick Nurse under the bus, but since he's put our whole entire team and franchise and fan nation under the bus with what he said yesterday, we'll go ahead and return the favor. So I'm going to blame Nick for Pascal's ineffectiveness in late game situations this whole entire year, because he's misused him. And you know what? In some ways, I would say that it's Nick Nurse's fault for calling his number in the first place. That you're dumb. If you continue to go to the same person over and over again and they don't get you results, you need to start calling somebody else's number in the last 2 minutes of the game, Nick. So let's blame Nick this morning, Infamous. How about that? You just saw how I turned it around and said it's Nick Nurse's fault. Well, there you go. There it is. MSJ saying they have a great bench. We don't. Your 3 stars look nice, though. And the Fred VanVleet offensive foul was weak. Yeah. Well, Maxey really did act that thing up. He really, really did. So weak, but whatever. They couldn't hit shots to end the game anyway. That's right. Yeah, that's all right. And yeah, I'm okay with all that kind of stuff. The Sixers do have an okay bench. I still don't like Niang. I think that he's a real weak kind of player, but he did hit a key 3 at a certain time. The guys on their team that really impressed me are people like Paul Reed. Paul Reed is an active big man who is all over the place. In fact, he played the way that we needed Chris or Precious to step up and play. 11 points for Paul Reed in 14 minutes, 3 of 5, perfect at the line, 5 of 5, 4 offensive rebounds for 6 rebounds altogether. Just very active. In fact, that was the play and the energy that we needed to see from Chris and Precious off the bench. Is exactly the kind of stuff Paul Reed was doing for them. Of course, that McDaniels guy was impressive. He had a couple of blocks that were nasty, really, really nasty. He came in and he did some good stuff. Listen, I hate the Sixers to a degree, but in some ways I don't. I don't hate them as much as I hate the Celtics. So I'm telling you, Sixers fans, let me cook. Random gamer, if you watch me later. I fucking may root for you guys against some of the other teams in the East if you guys get some good legs this year. It goes really against some things that I wouldn't believe saying. In some ways, I don't want Joel Embiid to ever become an NBA champion. But in some ways, I like you guys. And maybe it is partly because you guys come in and talk to me all the time. And I do really like the story about James Harden reclaiming his career and becoming a very serviceable, amazing point guard for you guys in the last 2 years. Tyrese Maxey, once again, what's not to like? He's a great young man, a fantastic young player. So in some ways, you may get some rooting interest from me in the postseason this year, Philadelphia, because in some ways you're the lesser of two evils to me as far as with other Eastern teams. So who knows? You might get the old Raptor freak rooting for you. If you're going to be playing the Celtics in the Eastern Finals, you will have me rooting for you for sure. Let's see. Click saying, if we have to change coach, trade Fred or OG to improve our roster, etc., then so be it. I want to be a better team next season, and I don't want to watch the same team again. I've seen it too many times. Well, we've seen it just for a year or two. We've only had Scottie for 2 years. I don't want to change too much. In fact, I'd be very curious to see what the big difference would be without changing anything else, just changing the coach and having a new coach come in with the same exact team as much as possible and seeing what they get out of it. We could see some really crazy things and be realizing, holy shit, Nick Nurse was horrible in this way. Like, why the fuck wasn't he doing this the whole time? This could very well happen next season if we have a new coach. Some fresh ideas comes in, and all of a sudden they start using our guys better to their potential, and they get more better results as far as connectivity and scoring. And once again, if they can improve our shooting percentage and make our team a better shooting team overall, wow, I'll be like, holy shit, all the numbers are way better under this new coach, so-and-so, instead of Nick. Seriously, are you guys grooming Earl? What are y'all doing? I mean, seriously, I want to know, Bobby and Masai. If it's not going to be Nick, who you got your eyes set on? And this could be, in some ways, I hate that this is happening, but this could be a very interesting offseason topic for us here on this channel. The what's going to happen with our coaching position this year. Yeah, I don't know, man. And Click, I don't mind watching the Raptors, no matter who they are. I understand this franchises go up and down. They have mid seasons, they have bad seasons, they have really good seasons, they have championship seasons. There's all kinds of different outcomes for the teams, and only one team wins the championship every year. So in some ways, you just want to be a winning team. I think in some ways, like, young people need to realize that if your team is above 500 for the season, that is a successful year. But everybody's championship or bust, and it's not good enough unless it's a championship. Well, I want to lower expectations in some ways for Raptors fans to start being okay with having just good seasons and getting far in the playoffs and stuff like that. And if we get another championship, hallelujah, of course. But, in some ways, that's what I want people to kind of understand, that we can't have unrealistic expectations that we're going to absolutely just be this juggernaut top team all the time, like we had been for 10 years in this league recently. That in some ways there's changes and things just have to change over time. And it's really hard to stay on that surfboard and ride that wave of excellence for a long period of time. And sometimes you have to wipe out a little bit and you have to try and build back and get back up on that surfboard again on the next wave. And in some ways, that's what's going on right now. I want to see a better team next season also. A better team record-wise, a better team coached, and a better team played out on the court for sure. I'm with you. G saying the Koloko alley-oop should have been free throws as well, and Boucher getting hit in the back should have been a foul and Raptors ball too. Yeah, they shaved free throws from us. He totally was shooting. Koloko was moving, and he had the ball like this, and he was shooting, and they made it side out. And the only reason why they did that was because Doc Rivers politicked and whined and cried on the bench for the Sixers loud enough to sway the referees to make a horrible call. Oh my gosh. And then even the challenge call, or not the challenge call, the flagrant foul call with Koloko and Embiid when he threw him to the ground. It was a weird fishy one too, because they didn't make it a flagrant. In some ways that may have been better. I don't know. Maybe not. They made it a technical. I've never seen that call, or that was a really weird, convoluted call, David Guthrie. And I'm wondering why you did it that way. And also, listen, you didn't look at the thing that happened with Scottie on the same play with his hand and all that kind of stuff. I mean, look, whatever. In some ways, David Guthrie's an okay ref. Ashley Moore-Gleish had her moments of being really cool. She was not getting along with Joel Embiid last night. There was a lot of back and forth between the two of them. And of course, Curtis Blair was awesome. He's always a good ref for us. But David Guthrie was doing a little shady on the down low ref hit job at that period of time where none of the calls went our way. And in fact, very egregiously bad calls went against us also. Yeah, there was a lot of that in the fourth. It was really bad. Trevor saying, good morning. Replied good last night. But the referees give them a little help too. We are good. We're going to win the rest of the games. I hope so, Trevor. I love your positivity. You and Jimmy, you guys are like positivity guys, and I really appreciate y'all. Space Cadet also. I really like how they responded. At halftime, I was like, this fucking sucks. We're down by 20. And I felt so deflated. And I was like, all right, well, let's just see what they do in the third. And well, I was so pleasantly surprised to see the fight they showed in the third quarter and clawing their way back into this game. That was admirable. And they did play very, very sound, good basketball. And in some ways, it told me, it's like, these guys aren't giving up on their season. These guys aren't giving up on each other. These guys aren't giving up on Nick Nurse, even though Nick Nurse is giving up on them. I mean, that to me is like what it showed to me is like there's a certain level of professionalism and pride with our Raptors, even if everything around them is kind of burning down. Because seriously, Nick, what you did kind of put our house on fire for the rest of the season. It's really, really stupid fucking interview you did, bro. Really, really dumb. Jimmy's saying Barnes has that dog in him. Yeah, I love his like get after it for the offensive rebounds recently. Like this is something really different. He wasn't as aggressive going after boards as he is now. And man, he's really making a game of it. And I love seeing it. You keep going, Scottie. You're doing all the right things. You can do so much down low in the paint and around the post with your turnaround. And I want to see this more and more. Just keep measuring your shot. Now, there was some trouble last night with going to the basket. This was part of the problem with our offense at the beginning of the game is we couldn't hit any threes, obviously. And then when we go inside, Joel was really, really lurking. And he was blocking stuff that we would have made. He was really getting in the way of anything that we tried to make down low. So that was what part of the problem was that we had no outside three and we couldn't make anything down low because Joel was in the way. And I was like, well, that means mid-range, y'all. What the fuck? This is like they take this away from your cupboard, they take this away, you can't make this. You got to go to what's working. And that's why I was like, why can't they find some mid-range shots? And that is Pascal Siakam's bread and butter. So where was Siakam going to like his mid-range and making those shots? Well, he didn't make a lot of them, but that is somewhere I was like, well, that makes sense. Why wouldn't you do that in contrast to what's being shown on the court? You go to where you can make the shots. And the mid-range was the place that the Raptors should have been going to in the beginning of the game when they couldn't make anything near the basket and they were missing all their threes. Let's see. Troy Henry saying, I'm pissed. They lost, but I'm not mad at them because I see the effort. Just wasn't our night. And remember, we don't have Gary, so it's not our full roster. Yeah, Gary would have helped immensely with the three-point shooting, obviously. We just needed that other threat. We needed him to maybe cash in like 3 or 4 more threes for us. And yeah, that would have helped a lot last night. It's really too bad that he's still hurt. And whenever Nick talks about Gary's injury, he kind of talks about it flippantly. Like, yeah, I don't know why he's not playing. He's not in there. And is Gary shut down for the rest of the season? In some ways, Nick even intimated that he said, I don't know if we're going to get him back for the rest of the year. I wonder if there's something weird going on with Gary as far as like with his contract and the writing on the wall with him on this team and different things like that. Are we in a really bad lame duck period of our team with our coach and a couple of the players? And everybody knows the writing is on the wall, as Todd Young had put on his Instagram this week, that the writing is on the wall. And that there's certain contingency of Raptor people involved on the team, maybe players and the coach, Nick Nurse, that are very much on their way out. And they already know it. That's what I'm wondering. That's why I don't like thinking this with 5 games to go still in the regular season. Like, what the fuck is that? Seriously. Nako saying Otto would have helped. Here's hoping he's around next year. Man, forget about Otto Porter. Like, if he's around next year and he can help us and he's healthy, that'd be great. But seriously, even bringing him up at this point, it's kind of a joke. It's kind of a joke at this point. G saying Harden, hang on. It jumped ahead, of course. All right. I love seeing everybody's names in here and filling it up so much. I love it. G is saying Harden is 33, Tucker is 37, Joel is 29, Maxey 22, Melton 24. Mix of ages. Why do people think everyone has to be the same age to do well as a team? Diversity is better, experience and young legs combined. Exactly. You want the right balance of that. And I think that you're right. And I think that the Sixers have a good balance of that. Throughout their whole bench, they've got a good range of ages, ranging all the way up to PJ Tucker's 37, right on down to Tyrese Maxey's 22. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Raptors Nation that gets all bent out of shape about old players like Pascal and Fred versus Scottie and young players is stupid. That's why you need that balance. You need both. And nobody needs to be like getting rid of guys just because of their age on this team in some ways, unless it may be Thad. That's the only person I would say maybe Nameless is saying it was totally a hit job as well. Let's not get it twisted. Yeah, it was on the down low. It was very subtle. For people like us that are paying attention and understand the mode and the modus operandi of how they do this, the refs can do this. We saw all the telltale signs: the offensive fouls, the over the back on Chris, the side outs for shots where we should have gotten free throws, robbed the free throws at different times. Yeah, that factor was in there, but we can't say that it killed us because we had opportunities to overcome it also. To me, I always look at it as this is the extra adversity as far as like they have a certain score we got to get above. We have to do this. It's like we have a checklist, a to-do list. And one of them is overcome the ref manipulation. That there will always be a certain percentage or a little bit of it happening to different degrees. At a certain point, you can't get past the ref manipulation of a Scott Foster in Denver, but you can get past the ref manipulation of certain bad calls against you in the fourth quarter still and overcome it and still try and win the game. And but it is a factor and it doesn't help. It makes it even harder for sure. Monica's saying, talk to Aaron Rose one-on-one last night. Hate the chatter behind Nick Nurse. Yeah, I hate this too. I really do hate this so much. I mean, let me read it a little bit more about what Nick said. If you guys don't know what Nick said last night, this is an article on ESPN from Tim Bontemps this morning. After 10 years in Toronto as an assistant and head coach, Nick Nurse said Friday he will take a few weeks to see where I'm at the conclusion of what he called a difficult season from a number of standpoints. Now, see, when he says that it was difficult from a number of standpoints, it makes me think, all right, we know it was difficult because of the stuff with the team, the injuries, then the losing. But now also I'm betting there was a difficultness behind the scenes with maybe players or with the front office. Maybe there was a difficultness in his own personal life with things that were going on and things that he had to deal with emotionally also. He also says early on, we had some pretty serious injuries with some key guys. I thought we kind of weathered that for a while. And yeah, I think the trade deadline stuff, I don't know if there was 1,000 rumors, 999 of them were about us. So it seemed like, so that was probably as interesting as it gets. I don't like him mentioning the trade deadline and all the rumors that surrounded us on our team. That doesn't even fucking matter, Nick. Masai did his job. He withstood all that noise, and you don't really have to worry about that. Sure, it can be a distraction, but you as a coach and most of the players should just shut all that shit off and not even pay attention to it. Of course, a lot of it was about Toronto because they like our players. They really want them on their other teams. And that Masai, that's the hard thing for Masai and Bobby, to withstand all the noise and the ideas of what people think we should be doing at the trade deadline with our players, and we should be selling or buying or like doing a fire sale and tearing it all down. I think that Masai and Bobby did a really good job at the trade deadline. Some people would disagree with me, but in some ways, why even bring this up as being something? Because this is something that probably didn't bother you that much. So, like, just bringing it up, are you just putting it out there? Oh, this is just hard because Toronto Raptors get more attention in this kind of way from the NBA media in the States? I don't know. I don't know what the point was of him bringing that up. I can understand the injuries and the schedule and the referees' calls, but bringing up the trade deadline rumors, that's kind of dumb. It's really kind of dumb. When Nurse was asked about where his head is at, he primarily focused on two things. And this is the thing that I'm pissed off about. He said first, this one. This isn't what first is, Nick. No, dog. First, you got to worry about the games you got to play still this season. And he said that second, and that's what makes me mad. He said, first of all, I think when the season gets done, we'll evaluate everything, and even personally, I'm going to take a few weeks to see where I'm at, Nurse said. Like you said, where my head's at, and just see how the relationship with the organization is and everything. So he's intimating that the relationship with him and the organization isn't that good right now. See, this is what I'm saying. This isn't speculation. This isn't rumor. This is straight from Nick Nurse's mouth. So in some ways, I'll put way more weight into this. This is how you do journalism, Doug Smith and other people. You don't just put out the rumor. Well, let's give us some evidence. Well, Nick did, unfortunately. And it really pisses me off. It's like where your head's at. Like, what is it? Like, you said that you love Canada and that this was your home and that you're on Team Canada's coach and you had all this stuff. And now all of a sudden you're not even sure what your head's at and what you want to do and what your relationship is with the organization. This is really crazy. He goes on to say, it's been 10 years for me now, which is a pretty good run. I don't know. Over those 10 years, we got to be up there in number of wins with anybody in the league. I don't even know where that is, but we've had a lot of big seasons. And then he says, and then right now, my head is to make this, and this is the second part. I mean, let me just stop for a second and say this. I think that in some ways, this is some Klutch bullshit. Like, in some ways, I really do feel like they told him, like, look, Nick, you can make way more money than what Masai and them are going to pay you. You can go down south and coach one of the other NBA teams, and we will get you a huge contract. And then I think that in some ways, he's getting advice from Rich Paul and Klutch to kind of blow up his shit here to become free. And that maybe he's buying into this whole idea of going and getting a huge payday somewhere else. That I think this is part of what's going on with him right now. You guys have tried to say that Fred's the one who's worried about money and all this kind of stuff. But I think it's Nick in the end. It's going to be the guy who worried about money the most, more than the players even. And I hate saying that. It just really pisses me off in some ways. Like, it really goes against a lot of the things that he's built up and said over the years. And I hate this. It's like I said, he's saying that it's been a good 10-year run. That sounds like somebody who's gone. Seriously, I'm not going to try and poo-poo this or make this positive or say, no, he's not going to leave or stuff like that. I fucking read between the lines. And I know what you're saying here, Nick Nurse, that you're fucking done with us, bro. You don't say shit like this and then like, we're re-signing him. Well, in some ways, you've kind of done some damage already. And some of us will be like, well, fuck, man. In some ways, we're going to be more mad at you and harder on you going forward just because of what you did yesterday. So it's crazy. So the second part he says is, and then right now, my head is to make this as long of a season as possible. Yeah, right. Your head is not, because you just said the first thing that's on your head. And it's not having to do with anything like that. I really do not believe you when you say you want to make this as long as possible a season. Let's see how you do against Charlotte in the next couple games. And then we'll see how you do against Boston. And then we'll finish the season against Milwaukee. And we'll see how you perform in the play-in. And if you're right on out of the play-in right away, yeah, I'll know how much your head was involved in all this. Seriously. This team needs playoff experience. So that is where I'm at right now. Okay, right. No, you're not. Finish out these 6, see where we land. And if we can't creep up a spot or 2 in the standings, well, then we'll give them hell in the playoffs and see if we can get in a real series and take it from there. This is the fucked up thing about this, Nick. You did something as a coach that not normally coaches do. You're not in a bad position in a lot of ways. You're in a neutral position. Things are okay. But for some reason, you screamed uncle and said, I want out of here. And you said this. And this is the thing. If a player is unhappy and they don't want to be there, they kind of check out and they stop like coming to the games like with the same attitude or like working as hard. Well, I'm worried about this with you because now you're the coach. And in some ways, like, this is not the fucking way we want to go on the stretch run for what you just said. This does not help us. That you're a distraction, that all the players know that you don't really want to be there anymore. Maybe some of them on the down low are like, yes, they're very happy and they're ready and excited for a new chapter, a new coach to be under. That may be very well true. That there may be some of the guys on the team that are looking forward to him leaving and having somebody else in charge. But this is the thing. This is always difficult. And this is why I kind of want them to hire from within. I'd much rather like to see Earl Watson be our head coach next season than have somebody else come in from the outside, because he's already a known quantity with the personality with the players. and that they know him. And I know that there won't be like friction. In some ways, he's already like, there's good things going. And you bring in a new personality of a coach, they may not get along with everybody in the right way. And that's part of what I'm worried about with getting a new coach. That's why I'd much rather hire from within. If it's Adrian, that's fine too. Although I feel like Adrian is such a company guy with Nick that in some ways he may go with Nick when he leaves. But I could see Earl Watson sticking around and just taking over the reins for Raptors next season. And I would not be upset with that. In fact, I think Earl Watson's a fantastic coach. And if he's got Rico here with him still too, that's a great thing. He'll probably make Rico his number one assistant. And we'll see how that goes with that. And then we'll have to see how he fleshes out the rest of his coaching staff, if it is Earl Watson. So, man, I'm just like, this is not what I thought I would be talking about on April Fool's Day of 2023. This is too early. It's too soon. You jumped the gun, Nick, you idiot. You really, really did. And you may have done too much damage to even come back down the road if you do still want to be the coach of the Raptors after all. Like if you do work things out with things, it's going to be a little hard in some ways for us to forgive you or trust you in some ways, because some ways you broke our trust yesterday. You really, really did. It's kind of crazy. Space Cadet saying, I didn't know Ime was interviewed for the position after Casey was fired and that he knows Masai well. That makes you start thinking a little bit. Yeah, I mean, listen, all right. Maybe I've been poo-pooing this thing a little too much this week. I don't think it makes sense. In a lot of ways, I don't think it makes sense. Like in some ways, I don't still want Ime Udoka. But once again, I have to trust in Masai, and that'll always supersede anything I think. There's one thing the Raptor freak believes in his first tenement is trust in Masai. And that if Masai Ujiri thinks that Ime Udoka would be a good coach for the Raptors, well, then I'll trust him. But as far as my personal opinion on the outside looking in, this is not necessarily what he's doing. I don't think it's a good idea. And I'd much rather, like I said, just put Earl Watson up as the head coach if Nick's leaving. And that is a better fix for me as far as what I think should happen. But we'll have to see. Infamous is saying, in my opinion, I think Nick is burnt out. Remember, he stepped away from the team with a personal issue that wasn't explained. This man hasn't had a time off. He hasn't had a break. This may be part of it for sure. In the offseason, he's busy with Team Canada stuff. So he's like, yeah, maybe he's gone full tilt. It could very well be. And this may be exactly what it is, guys. And in some ways, I want to be a humanitarian towards him. I just hate his timing. It could very well be that he had a tragedy in his family this season, and it gave him a perspective on life that kind of changed, like, what am I doing? I'm just running myself ragged, coaching like crazy, and I may be missing out on important things with people that I love, and there's not much time. And that can change your perspective all of a sudden, because I do think it has something to do with his absence that Infamous is talking about right now, that it very much has a lot to do with what happened, with why he said what he said yesterday. That, there may be something that's bigger than basketball that's really on his forefront of his mind. And in some ways, that may be part of the reason why he's trying to figure out what his future is going to be. It could be that he's just a nomad. Nick Nurse has always had a very suitcase kind of coach kind of guy. He's always got his suitcase ready because he's got to go coach the next assignment. And 10 years in one stop is a very long time. And maybe in some ways, maybe he's a little restless for new challenges and new places. You just better go fucking coach the Western Conference, Nick. That's all I'm going to say. If you coach in the Eastern Conference, fuck you, motherfucker, is what I'm going to say ahead of time. But yeah, you better go coach in the West. If I see you coaching against us in the East like Dwayne Casey, I'm going to be pissed off, especially if you're coaching a high-level team like the Boston Celtics. I'll be very, very pissed off if all of a sudden we have swapped coaches with the Boston Celtics over the last 2 years, and all of a sudden he's coaching the Celtics, and we've got Ime Udoka as our coach. That would be so weird and bizarre and strange. Very, very strange. MSJ saying could be the Nurse Fred VanVleet brain trust is going, gone. In the future, OG, Scottie, and Pascal, no Fred. And as much as Scottie is a forward, he wants to play point guard, and that's what he wants. End of story. All right, let me put this all together. MSJ is putting us out there with could be Nurse and a Fred brain trust is going, gone. I mean, I don't totally, I know a lot of people couple them together, but I don't think it's that way. I think that Nick is just like he has his guy. Sure, he likes to really like ride Fred and Pascal, obviously, but I don't think that it's like that. I think that if we got a new coach, and once again, just because Nick's leaving, if he is, uh, doesn't mean that these other guys are. It doesn't mean that Fred's going to be gone this summer too, for sure. That's what I'm saying. The same thing with like anybody who's saying that, oh, we got to get rid of OG and got to get rid of this person this summer too. Stop that talk. Once again, I'm not about making wholesale changes in big major ways because I do feel like we're close to things and we tinker with it and we make one change. Well, Nick's signaling that he's going to be the change this summer. Let's give a new coach the opportunity to drive this car with the keys without changing it too much, and that Fred is a part of the makeup of this team that's, in my words, essential. So just because Nick may be on his way out, and he's signaling that yesterday, I don't want everybody to start piling on and saying, well, let's put the Fred in the car with him on the way out too, because I don't look at it that way. These guys are all separate in different ways, and it could very well be, Fred VanVleet is valuable to any coach. And I'm sure if he was coached by Doc Rivers, Eric Spoelstra, or all kinds of different people, he would have an amazing relationship with any coach, not just Nick Nurse. So Isaac Campbell saying in the same breath, Nick Nurse talks about getting playoff reps for a young team. This just doesn't add up. I know. It's really just dumb. I don't know if he had a brain fart and maybe he's just like, I don't know. It seems like it's a thing where he's tortured and he's a hostage and they're like beating him. Like he's always saying name, rank, serial number. That's all I'll say. But then at some point he had his breaking point of like, yeah, no, I have to say it. Yes, I'm unhappy and I'm going to think about it all for a couple weeks in the off season after the season's over about my future with the Toronto Raptors. Wait, why are you saying it now? Oh, I'm too tortured. I'm too under duress that I have to bring it out right now before a huge game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Jimmy's saying not a good look, that's for sure. I mean, I'm betting he's regretting it this morning because he's seeing the dumpster fire he put out there. You made a Woj bomb, bro. In fact, when I saw it, like I was watching the feed and I saw it live when he started saying it. I was like, what are you fucking doing? Like I literally saw that whole press conference with him before the game because the feed I was watching showed it and broadcasted it. And I was hoping, all right, I hope a lot of people didn't see that. And then, of course, people saw it. And then people started like picking it up. And then by the end of the Raptors game last night, it was on the front page of ESPN and it was a Woj bomb on the Twitter. And it was all over and people were talking about it and making a big deal out of it. Yeah. Fuck, man. This is one of those cases where I was hoping it was just smoke and there was no fire. Well, there's definitely fire, and I'm really unhappy about it. Shir Khan saying, dude, what's up with Nick Nurse? Seems like he doesn't care. I really don't want Ime. Is this his swan song? Are we done with him? Masai has some major decisions to make 2023 offseason. We the North champs. You go, Shir Khan. This is what I'm saying. Fans like Shir Khan keep my spirits up in times of confusion and bullshit and craziness like right now. And I appreciate you, Shir Khan, because you know what? You bring it right back to what matters most. We are Raptors fans. We love our NBA team here in Toronto, and we root for them no matter what. And if whoever is going to come in and be our coach next season is, we're going to be rooting for them. And they're going to be our new guy, and we're going to be so happy to have them. And I hate saying that. It'd be really awkward if Nick is still our coach, if this gets all worked out. That's what I'm saying. You can't jerk around this shit. If you're going to break up with somebody, just break up with them and don't jerk around, like make it even harder and awkward over time, because it's always kind of a little bit damaged after that to a degree in some ways. So it's tough. This is a tough situation all around. And Nick Nurse, we're really mad at you today. Nako saying it probably should be Earl Watson who should be our next head coach. Devin Booker did credit him for developing his shot. Yeah. I mean, I think he's a great choice. Now, if it's going to be somebody else from outside, I mean, this is the thing. All of the best coaches are on teams right now. And, MA, I don't know. Like if Masai could really get him reformed, and he absolutely knows that this guy is like no funny business. There's no kind of crazy stuff. If you want to go to the strip clubs and have mistresses in Toronto that aren't an MLSE, Ime Udoka, so be it. But just as long as you're not mixing your pleasure with the company, That's what I'll say. You want to come and have fun and have an open marriage here and do whatever, just don't be messing with any of our support staff or any VPs, wives, or anybody who has any connection to the company or the team. And, there's a lot of attractive women in Toronto otherwise that don't work for MLSE. So, hey, all right. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Click saying, Lex, you have to be honest on this channel. I want to be optimistic too. But when coaches and players show you the same issues time and time again, that's the reality of the situation. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Click. And in some ways, you know what? I have to give you credit. You've been a very realistic kind of perspective on this channel. And sometimes when I'm very positive, I get it. And sometimes I don't like it completely, but I do understand the importance of having presence like you on this channel because you do keep us grounded in certain ways. I just hate that this has happened like this, but you're exactly right. I have to be honest and I try to be optimistic. I'm still optimistic about this. In fact, I don't look at like change like this as being uncomfortable or stressful. I look at it as an opportunity. And that's really the main thing we should be looking at this as. He's like, as positive Raptor fans, well, that's how you look at it. You want to spin this as in a good way? Well, maybe we're going to have a new chance to have a new chapter with our team, and maybe we will be more effective because we have a coach that's getting more out of our players, as I said earlier. Maybe we get further. Maybe we have more success. All kinds of different things happening for our team. And who knows? I'll stay positive about it, but I do appreciate your realisticness about the things this whole season. And well, Click in some ways has good ammunition for realism as far as this is the real situation. And yeah, I didn't want to admit this whole season that there may be problems underlying with issues inside our team because I don't like putting that shit on blast. But if it's already on blast and it's being put out there publicly, well, then we got to talk about it. But otherwise, I don't want to talk about stuff like that or put it on blast unless it's for very much concrete real. And it is at this point, and it's too bad. MSJ saying, I tend to think it's Scottie Barnes and OG versus Nick Nurse and Fred. Call me crazy, but if you were the Raps front office, who are you going to pick as push likely come to shove? They will do what Scottie wants. That's it. Well, we saw it at All-Star break. Scottie said, I love you to Masai, and Masai said, I love you right back. I think, all right, if we're going to start drawing lines, because I didn't want to do this all season, all right, I think that this may be actually accurate. That the conflicts or the differences and things could actually be stemming from Nick and Fred with, I won't say specifically Scottie and OG, but it could be with some people on the team or something. I don't know. Once again, I don't want to drag Fred into this too much because honestly, I really do feel like he's a very, very good player for us. And he's not somebody that we should just discard for a future. I've gone over many, many times why I value Fred VanVleet and all the things that he has as far as who he is and what he does, as far as he's Lowry for us at this point, as far as his championship pedigree with what he did for us in the 2019 championship run and all kinds of other things. I still think it's folly to go that far and get rid of him also this summer. But if it happens in a weird way and things go a certain way this summer and we see how things happen with Fred's contract extension and all this kind of stuff, well, trust in Masai. Once again, it always comes right back to trust in Masai. And whatever he's deciding, well, I got to go with because he's the man. He's the one steering the ship. He's the captain of MLSC's of the Raptors. And that is why we need to just trust Masai, depending on what happens with him. Now, I don't want to think that, listen, obviously, if we're going to have to choose between people, obviously, Scottie's number one priority going forward. He just is. And we got to make it his team and make him happy. And I'm all about that. I have no problem with that. Some people on Twitter last night were saying that Fred was freezing out OG late in the game last night and not finding him in situations late where he could have possibly taken some of the important shots late instead of him and Pascal. I hate thinking that there's certain players freezing different people out on the team. That kind of shit is fucking toxic and horrible. You guys need to be free flowing, and there shouldn't be anybody on the team. I don't pass it to this guy because I don't like him. Fuck that shit, Raptors. If you got that shit going on this season, y'all need to quit that shit right now. And in some ways, I don't detect it. There was a little bit of that I felt like between Pascal and Gary at the beginning, in the middle of the season, that I talked about a little bit on this channel, but it cleared up and it didn't look like that anymore. Now, if Fred is freezing different people out, I hate that. You shouldn't be doing that, Fred. I don't think he is. I think that that's just somebody overreacting, thinking too deep on it. But we're going to be paying attention. And, once again, whatever happens with Fred this summer is up to Masai and Bobby, and I'm going to trust them whatever they decide. Lion Hunter's here. Good to see Lion Hunter. My biggest issue with Nurse is the defensive strategy. It's a very tiring one that requires a lot of focus and movement. Just the unnecessary constant doubling bothers me sometimes. It's innovative, and in some ways, I really like it. I think that it's sound in its principle of being the aggressor and making them have to act in an agitated way. It really does cough up turnovers. I think in some ways it really does work well. But if we do switch coaches this summer, I don't know what the coach that's coming in will want to do and how they'll change things and stuff like that. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see this style of play if we change coaches this summer, which it does very much look like it's going to happen. Infamous is saying this could also be a money ploy by Klutch Sports to get him more money. I know. And that's the thing that pisses me off the most about it. It's like, what the fuck? Everybody's been saying that the players have been selfish this season in the way they're playing because of money and contract situations. Well, what if it turned out it wasn't even the players? It was the coach who's being selfish in that way, because this really does smack of that. Like, in some ways, like, look, if Fred acted like this right now, we would be all over him in some ways about this. But Fred's being very smart. He's saying, I don't worry about contract stuff until after the offseason. And that is the way Nick should have been too. But he's not being that way. So this does very much smack of like a Klutch strategy for negotiation. And I hate that, Nick. I really hate that, because that's not good for my team. And fuck you for doing that. Seriously, you fucked up the rest of the season and on the down low. If we lose both games against the Hornets, guys, you'll know why. You'll know why. If we lose both the games against the Hornets starting Sunday and Tuesday, yeah, you are going to know why if we do. Trust me, you will know why. Space Cadet saying, MSJ, there are no versus each other on this team. Come on now. Those are who shall not be named narratives. I think Nick is just mentally exhausted for a number of reasons. Yeah, I don't want to think that there is any kind of verses and that kind of stuff on the team. In some ways, I worry about Scottie's personality for possibly causing those kind of things on the team. But I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, we're not going to, once again, we're not trying to put these things on blast or make them up or make any kind of perception as reality into that kind of thing. So in some ways, I do disregard any of like what MSJ is saying, because I don't want more of it to just be out there. But there may be a little bit of that going on. I have to be honest, because of what's happening with Nick right now and his frustration, that it kind of portends that there are deeper problems in different places on the team. Well, hopefully Masai and Bobby can clear it all up and get whatever, all people on the same page this summer, and we can be in better shape this summer. When I do the dumpster fire rankings this summer on a special Sunday morning Sunday report, I'm going to have to move us up on the dumpster ratings because of Nick Nurse yesterday. That in some ways we are very much a dumpster fire right now because of our coach yesterday. And I hate that so much. I hate that so much. G saying, MSJ, I don't think that's true. OG and Fred and Pascal have been together years. Scottie and Fred are fine, as seen in their interviews and posts. I think that the evidence is supports this also. Like, looking at it, like as far as like OG is definitely okay with Fred and Jakob and Pascal. Those guys are kind of a cohort together. And because OG is such good friends with Scottie, he's a bridge, and they kind of all come together. I think that the divides are, if there are any divides, are weird ones and like really weird places that don't matter as much. And they're not with like key guys. If there are any divides. But I like that G and Space Cadet are kind of disputing that there are problems between players, because ultimately these guys are team players, and they do understand that you got to be like together as a team to be absolutely successful. And they don't want to mess up their chance to be successful just because they're being unprofessional and not getting along with each other. So, yeah, that's a big part of it. G's also saying, Nurse said something about he has to see his relationship with the organization. He does seem exhausted. No idea what to make of this. That's a very telling line. when he says he has to see where his relationship is with the organization, I think that Masai has been frustrated with him. I didn't want to believe that because at his trade deadline presser, Masai said, I'm very happy with the job Nick's been doing. But he also said, I'm not happy with the development of the young players on our team. And, of course, the winning pressure is always there. And that maybe in some ways he sees what Nick's done with the team this year. And he's like, you know what? We could have had somebody get better results out of this team. In some of these close games, you've definitely made coaching mistakes that have led to some of the losses. And, that may be part of what he's looking at. Like if Masai and Bobby are being absolutely honest with the potential of the Raptors and how well they could do, they've got to do an evaluation on Nick and decide whether he's been failing or succeeding or not. And in some ways, maybe they are looking at the stats and the things they take care of with that. And they're like, yeah, he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing as far as the coach of our team. And then it's a perfect storm. Maybe if he has a personal problem in the middle of the season, he's losing, he has these personal issues, Masai and Bobby aren't being totally understanding with everything that's going on with him and the pressure and just like everything starts happening. And then boom, he's just like, I'm disenchanted with being the coach of the Raptors because of this. That seems like that may be what happened. Is that, he and Ernest came into the season, had a lot of very difficult things happen. And then boom, he had a personal tragedy in December. It changed his focus on how he looks at life in general. And then boom, he's maybe kind of checked out a little bit in the second half of the season to a degree, even though they're going through the motions, they're trying to win, they're showing up, they're doing the schedule. In some ways, maybe Nick has checked out at a certain point already. Let's see. Sheer constant growing pains, dude. Growing pains. I guess this is what we have to go through for development. Maybe that's why Masai didn't go for big changes, because saving up talent capital for one big move. Well, once again, Masai and Bobby said anything they could have done at the trade deadline, they can do this summer. And there's no hurry. In fact, they'd rather do it when there's a lot of losers out of every team instead of like everybody thinks they can go for a championship at the trade deadline. Well, at the end of the year, when everybody's lost, and except for one team, and everybody's kind of in the same position, well, maybe the deals are better and they're easier to be made. And that's why he's waiting. So I don't know. We'll have to see. It's going to be very interesting, but it's already showing that we're going to probably get a coaching change. I hate that this rumor came true. And I really hate it. I really, really hate it because I was really fighting against it and saying it wasn't true. And now, well, I'm wrong. I have to admit I was wrong this week. And I have to admit that Doug Smith was right. I hate that shit. I fucking hate having to admit that because I didn't want it to be true. I really, really didn't. And that's why I'm disappointed. Let's see. Isaac saying it always has been a lack of bench depth, just not enough pieces. We got Poeltl and are trending up. Sowing the seeds of division is no solution ever. Nick Nurse has only been honest. I'm not blaming him here. Yeah, I mean, you think that it's because the front office just didn't give him a good enough bench. Yeah, I think that's bullshit. I mean, seriously, Nick, you got to be able to use any player that's in the NBA. There's a reason why guys are in the NBA, and you got to be able to use their tools. And in some ways, Nick has been complete failure with his bench over his tenure as the NBA as a coach for the Raptors. That like he really hasn't had a good bench ever in any season other than the championship year and the year after. But since then, he has not had a good bench. And it's not, I don't even think it's the front office's fault. I think that he just misuses his young players. He doesn't use role players correctly. And that's part of the problem. Maybe this is a big part of the crux of the problem with Masai and him. Is that look, we didn't draft Christian and want him to be a certain place in a certain place, and he's not there at this point in the season. What are you doing with Delano? Why has Malachi gotten nowhere in his career in 3 years? These may be the questions that Masai is asking, because like Malachi Flynn hasn't built any value into him as a player in 3 years. There's something wrong with that he should have had some sort of value. Maybe Eric Flynn's been right all along, that Nick Nursery was holding back Malachi. And now Masai's like, yeah, I'm with Malachi and Eric, Nick. Where the fuck have you been with these guys and getting them more time? It could I don't know. It could be. That's kind of part of what it is. But I don't want to sow any divisions with the team. Right now, like I said, Isaac, Nick Nurse has made himself a scapegoat now for me. I'm going to lump everything on him. I'll dump everything that happened this season on Nick Nurse and make him responsible for it all, because that's the way I want to do it. Now, damage control, I will make him a patsy, just like Tim Donaghy. Yeah, I'll make him a patsy, but put it all on him because he's made himself a target for it, and he's already anointed himself as on his way out. G saying, is Gary this injured? His threes could have been help off the bench. It's frustrating because the starters are good. 3-point shooting has been an issue for this team, and it's clear in this new league, you need it. Bench depth has been tough too. Yeah, I can agree with all that kind of stuff. I mean, we could have better bench pieces, but I'm saying whatever you got, you got. You got to get the best out of it. And I don't feel like he gets the best out of it. And that's the biggest problem with that kind of stuff. I wonder about Gary's injury too. Like, it could be that he's on like Klutch, another Klutch agenda. Klutch may be fucking things up to a degree in some ways. Who's on Klutch on our team? All right, Nick, Fred, Gary, OG, and Koloko. Those 5 guys are on Klutch. Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe Nick's acting out pocket. Maybe Gary's sitting out because Rich Paul's telling him to. That's fucked up. I don't want that kind of shit happening. I really don't. Cool Cat saying, good morning, Raptor Freak crew. Challenges, but I will look forward. We are building towards our chip. You go, Cool Cat. That is exactly what I love to hear. Listen, this is difficult and this is sad. It makes me really unhappy to hear the things that Nick said before the game. But once again, looking forward is what Cool Cat's saying. And we are building towards our second chip no matter what. Trust in Masai. Whatever happens with our team this offseason, it's going to be for the better. And we're going to look better next season, and we're going to kick more ass. That's what we want. Jimmy's saying a lot of individual motives this season as well. Masai alluded to it after the deadline with the selfish comment. This team had every reason to do better than last year, but it all fell apart. Shaking my head. Now, see, I don't know if it's exactly like that. Like, once again, that comment when Masai said that, I don't take it as like selfish motives for contracts. I take it as selfish motives, like just not playing like as a team on the court, that they're not being passing well enough. That's where they're selfish. And I, maybe that is connected as far as like, oh, I need to shoot a lot more so my contract's up. I can see where that is the effect on it. But I think it really is just on the court. Masai's trying to say that they didn't share the ball enough or work well enough together. They played selfish on the court. And I don't really look at it as like, because really, how many of these guys have selfish objectives? Well, we're finding out Nick, Fred, Gary, and Jakob, but I don't see Jakob as being like a selfish person, because like Scottie and Pascal and Precious and a lot of those guys are taken care of this season, and they have nothing to do with anything this offseason. So it's like, who's being selfish? Gary, Fred? I don't know. Maybe I can see it a little bit in those 2 guys, but not really. I mean, I really look at it as the style of play, that he wanted them to stop playing such a selfish style of play. That's what I really read into it as. Isaac saying the Raptors failed to close out on threes in the second and overthinking switches with Embiid, and then the Sixers' depth stepped up and beat ours. Boucher brought up fake comebacks like a million times in his postgame. Yeah, Chris is sick of it. In some ways, you can tell these guys are not happy all of a sudden. Like, what the fuck? We had such good vibes after beating Miami on Tuesday. We had really good vibes. Where the fuck did those vibes go? Why did you crush them, Nick? Like, seriously, you were in good shape. You had good momentum. And in some ways, your pregame interview yesterday crushed our momentum going up against the Sixers, that it was deflating in some ways. I don't know if the players heard what you said or if your energy is like that around them. Obviously, they're not going to be totally up and coming in with the best effort to try and beat Philadelphia. That's part of what pisses me off too, is the timing of all this. Dude, we had things going good. We felt real good. We had a 3-game winning streak. We just beat the Miami Heat and Kyle Lowry. And now you want to pee all over our birthday cake, Nick Nurse? Because that's what it feels like right now. It really does feel like that. Part of the problem in the second, Isaac Campbell, was the Raptors were not communicating effectively on defense. There was a lot of like miscommunication and being in the wrong spots and blowing coverages or being doubled on one guy where they were, wait, I'm supposed to be on that guy. I'm supposed to be on this guy. Why are you here with me? Oh shit, the guy over there is open. Georges Yang, bam, 3. There was a lot of that kind of bullshit going on with miscommunication and unorganized stuff on defense. And that's why everything fell apart and they were just scoring like crazy. You couple that they're hot, making absolutely everything, and we're having defensive breakdowns. Yeah, that's the second quarter last night for sure. Yeah, Chris Boucher's just being honest and being himself. At least we know he loves being in Toronto and being here. Alex is here. Good to see you. Alex Terex. We have not seen you a bit. Good to see you. Time to get rid of Siakam and Fred. Can't take any more of this bullshit, selfish basketball. Siakam is overpaid, and Fred doesn't deserve a penny more. Cannot perform versus good teams. Choke artists. I mean, today it's fair. I mean, I would stand up for those guys, but in some ways, this is very biting and tough, but it's fair. In some ways, it's very fair. I don't know. Like, I very, like, once again, I very much caution getting rid of either one of those two guys just because of what they've meant to our team and what they've done. And as far as like the linkages to the championship, um, it's tough. Like I'm not talking about their money. I don't care about the money. You bring that up, that's fine. As far as like not being able to perform in late game situations, yeah, it pisses me off. It really does piss me off. I mean, if they had more games this season where they were effective late game situations like last year, I would have more ammunition to fight against this comment, but I don't. In fact, I can say that this is absolutely true. There's been too many games this season where in the last 5 minutes, these guys are absolute shite and they can't hit the broadside of a barn. They miss all their shots and they don't take us home. Well, why are they the ones that get their numbers called and they're the only ones who do this kind of stuff late in the game? Nick, seriously. See, this is where I'm going to come right back around and blame Nick because he's the fall guy now. Why aren't you calling number 4? Why aren't you calling number 3? Why aren't you calling number 33 when he is healthy in those situations? That's what I want to know at this point. Stop fucking calling 43 and 23. You need to call 3, 4, and 33 at the end of the game and give them a chance to take us home to win. And yeah, I can get behind that. G saying Koloko was another bright spot for sure. He's going to be great for this team. Yes. And maybe that's why Masai wants Nick gone because he did not use Koloko enough in different ways this season. In fact, I'm like totally pissed with how the 905 was used this season. I don't think that we did a very effective job using the 905 in conjunction with the main Raptors in the right, smart kind of ways. We did not maximize either. Speaking of the G League has a mid-season tournament. Well, the NBA is going to have one next year, guys. They came to an agreement last night. The collective bargaining agreement for the NBA with the Players Association was ratified or was agreed last night, and they're going to have an in-season tournament that will start the next season. The event will include pool play games baked into the regular season schedule starting in November, with 8 teams advancing to a single elimination tournament in December. The Final Four will be held at a neutral site with Las Vegas prominent in the discussion, sources are saying. Each in-season tournament game would count towards regular season standings. The 2 finalists would ultimately play 83 regular season games. Winning players and coaches will earn additional prize money. And I've heard that each player on the team that wins this in-season tournament will win $500,000. $500,000 each. So there's other things in the new bargaining agreement that they agreed to last night. This is great news. And I'm glad that this happened. Hopefully this isn't an April Fool's joke. But marijuana will no longer be tested. The players will be able to freely smoke marijuana and not get in any trouble with the league at all. That was one of the concessions in there. They also decided that you have to play 65 games minimum to qualify for any postseason awards. So they figured out a whole bunch of stuff with the bargaining agreement last night, and they come to a conclusion with it. And this is great news. And some of the other stuff is very interesting. It has to do with mid-level exceptions and the salary cap and things for smaller market teams and easier ways to deal players and deal with stuff. Michael definitely have to go and look at all the parameters of what was decided. Logical Raptors fanatic can maybe do a piece on the new CBA agreements and what all is new about it and how it can affect the Raptors. So very, very interesting stuff. Very, very, very interesting stuff for sure with the new agreement made last night. I like the minimum for awards. I like the getting rid of the marijuana problems, the cannabis problems with like, testing for cannabis and get in trouble. And I really do like that the play-in tournament, or not the play-in tournament, the in season tournament will be involved. And it'll be interesting because there'll be specific games that are tournament games that matter more, because they won't just be a regular season game that's record matters for the overall record for the team, but also it matters for this tournament and qualifying in Las Vegas. So that very interesting. And we're going to get it right away next season. So that's very, very interesting stuff. Very interesting. Alex is saying gambling dictates the whistle. I mean, to a degree, I don't want to be that jaded to say, yeah, but in some ways, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, you wonder about point shaving. You wonder about like spreads. You wonder about manipulating things with the spread and payouts on gambling. That's the problem, NBA, with this gambling is you're going to make all these questions open up. You're going to have all these little weird dumpster fires around the league, whether it's stuff with Bradley Beal in Orlando, whether it's things like Chris Boucher getting nasty messages from people gambling on him. There's going to be all kinds of side effects. And in some ways, you're ruining the game. I really hope you guys can turn this around and get rid of it all and go back to the way it was. But in some ways, I already know the genie's out of the bottle, that once money's made, people will just continue to want to continue to do it, even if it makes the game worse and we make it more and more toxic. And in some ways, we walk the line of absolutely destroying the league somehow, some way, with some sort of scandal. You go ahead, Adam Silver. This is what you want to do. Make this league a casino and have all your players look more like as commodities and people that people on the street will yell at because their stocks aren't up because they didn't play good enough. Yeah, you go ahead and do that, Adam Silver. Make this league into more of a dumpster fire. Shir Khan saying, you know what? This is now turning me off the play-in tournament. I don't even care to invest my emotions if coach is not in it. Scottie is bought in. He wants to win. So does OG. And I'm all for that. Yeah, I'm seriously. In some ways, like Nick, you just waved the white flag with 6 games to go in the season. Why the fuck did you do that? Seriously, bro. Are you that checked out? Are you that disenchanted with being the coach of the Raptors that you had to make things really uncomfortable and difficult? Well, if you were already not having a good time, you may have an even worse time at this point. In some ways, I think maybe you need to just take a leave of absence for the rest of the season and let somebody else run this team for the rest of the season, because, I don't trust you as a Raptors freak coaching our team to the utmost ability that you can. I think you've given up to a certain degree. And in some ways, maybe you need to just walk away for the rest of the season and let Earl Watson run this team for the rest of the season. I'm just saying, Click's saying, nah, bro, don't get it twisted. I will watch this team regardless. It's just when the talent on the team doesn't match the results and we see the same problems reoccur, it's time to face reality. This is a good point Click's making. And I think this may be part of what Masai's factoring in is he looks at it on paper, the Raptors and how good they are with the talent, they should be performing way better than they are. And well, then he starts to point fingers. For some time this season, we talked about, are there going to be a fall guy for this season? Is there going to be somebody who takes the blame for what's happened this season? And in some ways, I was saying we should be Bobby Webster because he didn't give a good enough bench to Nick. Well, now we're trying to find out, the fall guy is going to be Nick. And then it may be that we're going to blame this season on Nick Nurse and we'll move forward from him and he will just be the fall guy. So be it. If that's how it is, he wants to jump on the sword himself. He's not strong enough to get through it and stay at the helm and continue to lead the Raptors. So be it, Nick. Oh my gosh. Nameless is saying, just focus on adding another great draft choice. I want to win still. I do want to still win. Fuck, I got to do a preview tomorrow. We got to do more reactions still. We're not done with this off season. I'm not ready to cut things off. I want to see these guys try harder still. Nick, you said you want to get these guys as far as possible. Well, you may have said it with your words, but your feelings and the way you're coming across don't really get it across as being honest. You may have said it with your words, but I don't believe you when you said you want to get these young men as much postseason playoff experience this year. Yeah, I hope you're right. And maybe we will. Maybe will be some sort of weird, like kick in the pants where it's like, well, we know coach isn't going to be around anymore. Let's win some for him. Maybe the players do really love Nick and they don't like the writings on the wall. And maybe for him, in his honor, they'll go above and beyond and try and play their asses off and go as far as they can. And maybe, who knows, 2023 NBA champions, even though Nick Nurse said with 6 games to go that he's done coaching us. Could be some sort of weird story like that. Well, we knew it was now or never because he was leaving. And we did it because we knew it was now or never. That could be a weird side effect of this. That's not very likely because that's not how it usually works. But hey, I can dream. Could that happen possibly? It's like Fred gets all the guys and goes, guys, Nick's not going to be our coach next year. Let's try and win it all for him before we get out of here. He gets out of here, you know? Oh my gosh. Let's see. Space Cadet saying, wow, Pascal and Fred played the entire second half. Yeah. I would have liked to see Jeffrey Doughton Jr. in there. If they're going to play that whole second half, they better not be taking all the damn shots and carrying all the weight on their backs because they're tired. They are tired. The most effective Fred is the Fred that comes in with 5 minutes to go in the game, who sat 5 minutes before that he can make his big threes late in the game when he's actually gotten some rest. So in some ways, maybe that's a failing of Nick Nurse. Masai can say, well, he didn't fucking rest Fred for the last 5 minutes so that he can make his shots. That's a failure of the coach. There you go. Bam. Infamous is saying, let's not jump to conclusions. This could just mean he's reducing his load, maybe stepping back from other duties, such as coaching Team Canada. I don't know. I mean, seriously, some of the things he said, like, seriously, I read these conversations and interviews that these coaches and players have in these press conferences very seriously. And I'm reading between the lines. He's done, bro. He's not going to be coaching us next year. I hate saying that. I want to know that there's a way that he can come back, but I don't think there is at this point. That everything's that's said is exactly what is said, and it is what it is, and that he's not going to be back with us next year. I really, really, I hate that. But in some ways, I think this is not. It's not that it's irreparable. It's just it's already gone down that road a little bit. And yeah, coming back and like kind of like healing it could happen, sure. You know, if it is, Masai trusts Nick still, and he says he ordains him that. Once again, I just got to follow Masai Ujiri's leadership and his decision making. And if he's like, no, Nick, you're not the coach anymore, we're bringing in somebody new, that I will trust. If he says, no, Nick, you know what, we want to try one more time, we think that you're going to do a good job, all right, I'll trust it, even though this is all fucked up and broken right now. Let's see. I don't know about him. I don't know. Is he going to, if he leaves the Raptors, what's going to happen with Team Canada? That's going to be my big question. You know, some people have said, well, there's people in like Mike Brown coaches Team Nigeria and he doesn't live in Nigeria. He can still coach that team. In some ways, I could see that. And maybe Nick will feel a responsibility to that core, the young Canadians on that team, and wanting to see them through the project. You know, it'd be kind of fucking an asshole thing to do when you make these young guys commit to the window of Team Canada for the Olympics, and then the coach doesn't even follow through with that fucking window. That would be a little bit weird and like sending the wrong message, considering that you had everybody say, yeah, we're going to be committed and be there for the Olympics when your coach didn't even do that. So we'll have to see. Isaac saying, I'm more upset with the failure to develop through 905 earlier in the season to maximize the bench for a team that relies on internal growth in post-championships era rebuild. That's not on Nick Nurse. Okay. As far as like who's diverting which player from which place, Ron Harper, Jeff Doughton here, Delano, Coloco, Joe Weezy, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I don't know who makes those decisions. Is Nick Nurse making those decisions? I've wondered. Like in some ways, he should be the one making the decisions because he kind of wants to know who he can have for his personnel on the main roster. And I don't think that was done very well this year. And I don't know who to blame for that because I don't know whose job description is, who decides and manages between the 905 and the Raptors. And I think this has been a big fail this year for sure. I'm with Isaac on this, that was a fail. And a lot of the good teams in the league, like last night, the Sixers have developed Melton into a very effective role player for them off the bench and even a semi-starter when they need him to step in when James is out or something. Well, what happened? They put time into him and they developed him into that and integrated him into the team. Well, Nick has failed at that kind of stuff with different people. I know Will Barton has been an absolute failure since he came to our team. And but like things like with Jeffrey Down Jr., like where we could have explored more with him, where could we have explored more with Koloko? What the fuck has happened to Lano Banton's development this season? This may be all the Lincoln Log building blocks of the structure that Masai Ujiri has a problem with Nick Nurse's job, is what I'm saying. Let's see. Jam Joseph is saying we were coming back. The refs low key hit job makes me sick. It's always no calls at the wrong time, and Philly getting the same pity pat calls. And I agree. We needed Gary this game. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of different factors that could have helped us last night. But once again, we were probably going to lose this game. I mean, it's a tough game. They have a really crazy home crowd. It's very tough to play in. There's a lot of odds against us right now. And this is very much one of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers, they're very much a good team, and they're playing at a very high level for a while. So, it's no slouch in what we did with them. In fact, I would say that Sixer fans probably impressed with how we did against them. And if we were asked them, how did we gauge on the opponent list as far as teams you played recently and fight, and how you were impressed with how the team played against you and what we did defensively and all that kind of stuff? I bet you a lot of Sixers fans, just like Let Me Cook, would say glowing things about the Raptors and our effort against them. That they've seen a lot of really good top teams recently and had different struggles with different ones. And I'll bet you they'd say a lot of glowing, positive things about the Raptors in certain ways, like Let Me Cook did at the beginning of this stream. So, yeah, we really needed Gary last night. And the hit jobs, they're just a part of the landscape. We know that it's there, and we just got to avoid falling in the pitfalls of getting mentally hurt by the unfairness and just saying, fuck this. You're going to be unfair like this, motherfucker. I'm going to put it in my own hands. And I'm going to win this game no matter what, even with your unfair calls. That has to be their mentality. Let's see. All right, let's keep going with the comments. So good to see so many people here this morning after a loss, even a tough, this difficult loss with all kinds of stupid bullshit before the game. Let's see. Jamjos is here. Good to see Jamjos. We were coming back. The refs. Oh, wait. That's the one I just read. G saying Sixers have had good seasons for years with no chip. It takes playoff repetition and experience and focus to get a chip. And yes, that may mean years of just good and great seasons. Yeah. Yeah. You can't just rise up and get a chip like we did in 2019 every single time. There's a staircase and people trying to get to it. And it's not everybody can get there. And, there's a lot to it that makes it hard. The Sixers have gone through their doldrums and failures in years like the one with Kawhi shot. And, in some ways they want to get higher and higher. They want to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They want to win in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they want to be in the finals against a Western team. That is what the Sixers want. That is the only way to get success this year for them. If they don't go very deep in the playoffs, it will be a disappointment. Denal saying, Isaac, it's on Nurse for not sending guys to 905. Than sitting guys on the bench and not utilizing them during games. Yeah, I think that paints it right there. It's like, look, he's not sending them down there, but then he's not even playing them off the bench. Well, they're not getting enough time. Like, did they look at the court minute time for Delano Banton and Christian Koloko and say, these guys need more time on the court? Because you only get development from playing a lot. These guys aren't playing enough. Monique saying, Dear Mavs, please beat the Hawks. Signed, all Raptors fans. Nice to see the Hawks lose. Love Sherman Hamilton's positive side after the game on Sportsnet. All right, we'll have to hear what Sherman said. I do love positivity and optimism. Thank goodness. Shine a light, Mr. Hamilton. We do need it right now more than ever in some ways. Yeah, go ahead and beat the Hawks tonight, Kyrie and Luka. If you can get your shit together for once and beat the Hawks tonight, we'd be very thankful to you for that because that will help us get that 8th spot right away, in fact. But we do need to take care of business with Charlotte also. We want that 8th spot bad. We really, really do. Shirkan saying, Lex, great point about the mid-range shots. Just look at champs for the past 5 seasons, starting with the Raps. All of them had players with great percentage from within the arc and outside the paint. Well, that's where Siakam's supposed to flourish. Where was Siakam flourishing in that way last night? Why didn't the coach structure a plan to get us good open shots in the mid-range if we're cold from three and Joel is blocking the lane? You got to get that mid-range. You got to find the space to get open shots and where you can make them. And you have a lot of good mid-range shooters. You got Scottie, you got OG, you got Fred, who can do a little dribble in and get a easy pop in there. You got Pascal, that is absolutely magnificent with his mid-range shot. In fact, some people have been comparing him to DeMar DeRozan with his mid-range recently on Raptors Today and places like that. So, what was that? Lux, same. This has Klutch written all over it. It really does. It really does. In some ways, this doesn't have like the behavior of Nick Nurse normally. And this really is like fucking Klutch put him up to do this shit. And in some ways, it's very destructive for our team and irresponsible and not nice for us. It probably has Masai furious today. Seriously, do you think Masai's happy about this? The distraction and the bullshit he caused? In some ways, this probably divided him and Nick Nurse even further because Nick put it on blast publicly. It's the worst. It's the worst. Sheer constant. I think I'm going through stages of grief right now. I kind of relate to Nick Nurse just in recent months. I was not appreciated in my last team and checked out towards the end. Maybe some BTS behind the scenes conversation with Masai. Sheer Khan is feeling some of the things that Nick's going through himself. And because he's seeing parallels with his own life, with some of the things that are going on with Nick. That's tough, man. So maybe you do have some good insight for how he's feeling and thinking in his head. Maybe in some ways. Oh man, that's tough, man. I hate to hear that you've been going through adversity too. Whatever you're going through, Sheer Khan, we're here for you. Raptor Freak family's got your back, bro. We're a good support network for everybody who frequents this. And, never be afraid to reach out for help. We're here for you, man, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. The behind the scenes conversation, there probably was some sort of very at odds conversation between Ujiri and Nurse this year that kind of maybe hurt things and made things kind of spiral apart a little bit. I'll bet you that's right. There's had been murmurs and rumors I've seen in some places that there is a little bit of a chasm between the two of them at this point, and that sucks. Like we said at the beginning of the season, what was Masai saying about they can dream about getting Nick Nurse, like they dream about Messi, like they dream about Kobe. What the fuck happened to get all the way to this point, from that point of Masai saying that last offseason to get to this point where we're at now? Well, does it have to do with Klutch? Is it Klutch's fucking fault? G's saying that's another way to look at it, Sheer. Maybe for some reason he is not feeling appreciated. Front office has said something, etc. In some ways, like I said, I might very simply be this. Sometimes your life changes your perspective because of events that happen around you. Like, some people have a middle-age crisis because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in middle age. And I'm like, I want to do this. And you have a whole different perspective on life because you see your own mortality. In some ways, there may have been something that happened in his life to somebody who he cares about that totally changed his perspective on what matters to him in life. Think about it that way. That could be part of it, because in some ways Nick's little like happiness and innocence and kind of like little quick smile is gone. In some ways he's very much more likely to seem agitated, frowning, or upset or mad than like playful, kind of glee, kind of like we're having fun while we're doing this job. At some point it looked like Nick didn't have any fun anymore, and what was happening with everything. He was short in interviews. He looked very huffy and angry. He looked sick at times. He just looked like he wasn't happy as a person deep down inside. And that circles back to this whole idea about positive energy that he talked about at the beginning of the season. And where did the positive energy within him go? Well, maybe he had a life-changing event that happened to somebody in his life, and it completely changed his perspective in some ways on what matters to him in life. I think that may have something to do with it. Let's see. That's another way to look at it, Sheer. Maybe for some reason I'm feeling appreciated. Okay, Jimmy's saying all this came from Dougie starting this shit. This shouldn't have never been brought up till the end of the season, not with 5 games left when we were battling for position for playing playoffs. Shaking my head. Yeah, we'll blame Doug too. A little preemptive, a little early on this bullshit. Although we've been hearing murmurs of it all season. He really brought it out in full force, put it in print in the newspaper. And well, Nick like reestablished that it is right. Yeah, I fucking hate that too. Like he brought the dumpster fire and put it on gas on it with his bullshit in the Toronto Star this week. And now Nick is saying, yeah, it's true. And now it's just fucking burning. There's just a fucking dumpster fire on fire right now. And yeah, it sucks. Because, like, listen, these motherfuckers don't care about the Raptors if they're going to act like this, Doug Smith and Nick Nurse. And that's the thing I hate. He's the head coach of the Raptors. And obviously, he doesn't care about the Raptors because what he did yesterday signals that. Nameless is saying, I think we should prepare to move on from Nick Nurse. Ultimately, he's already accomplished the ultimate goal, mission impossible. And sometimes a new voice is necessary for growth, anyways. Yeah, I'm already doing this, Nameless. Seriously, if I thought the chances of him being back, like, they're totally crushed. Once I saw that press conference, I heard what he said. I was like, yeah, I'm fucking done with him. And it's not that, like, I don't love the guy, and it's not that I don't appreciate him for what he's done for this Raptors team. It's just at this point, it's gotten to a bad place. And in some ways, it's like, yeah, we're ready to move on. And in some ways, we love the challenge of new people coming in and seeing what can happen with possibilities of progress and new positive, better results. And I am all about that. Listen, I'm not afraid of change. Change is always an opportunity. That's the way I look at it. Lux is saying the Philly broadcast also mentioned Nick Nurse's comments. They said rumors are he's looking for a job elsewhere. Yeah, that's fucked up. I mean, he put it so on blast. In some ways, it's almost like he like told all of our bullshit to all the enemies out there. He didn't need to do that. He really, really didn't need to do that. He needed to keep this more internal. Well, now there's more talking points. His name is out there more. They're putting him on blast. It's very much a Klutch strategy. I'm pretty sure it's a Klutch strategy to get him more attention and get him more focused and maybe get him a bigger contract. Oh man, such fucking bullshit. All right, and I said, if he moves on, he better not be fucking coaching in the East. That's all I'm saying. Marlon Toby's here. Good to see Marlon. Oh, I missed you, Marlon. Good to see you, man. Morning. Could Nick be on his way to the Clippers? Kawhi strikes again, maybe. It's crazy. Tyron Lue has had a very difficult season himself. I don't know if many people know this, but he had 8 family members die around Christmas. That is so sad and awful. And if the Clippers are going to can him after a horrible personal season he's had, well, shame on them. Shame on Steve Ballmer if he's going to fire Tyron Lue after the sad season that he's had with dealing with loss. I've heard a couple things. Obviously, we've heard the Houston rumor as far as he's going to go take Houston. Obviously the Lakers still want him. They're ready to fucking dump Darvin Ham like that. Even though he's gotten pretty good results for them over the season, they will dump him for Ime Udoka or Nick Nurse in a heartbeat. The Lakers still thirst for him. And this is where Masai's statement from last summer sounds so stupid. Because in a way, maybe it is like that. Maybe LeBron is fucking finagling bullshit in a dirty ass way. Maybe he's like, I want Nick. And let's get him fucking unensconced in Toronto. And let's get him to the Lakers. If he ends up coaching the Lakers and he's coaching LeBron James next season, I'm going to be pissed off. Because in some ways, I'm going to be thinking there's collusion with Klutch and LeBron's ownership of it. That's what I'm going to say right there. It's like if that bullshit happens where he is coaching LeBron, that is what I will be saying. Monique is saying, I said it in the Facebook group chat, put the clamps on the Hornets. No ifs, ands, or buts. Yeah, they're playing pretty good. Dennis Smith Jr. playing pretty good for them. I'll do the research today and look at exactly where they're at, but they are playing very dangerous, spoiler, with nothing to lose, and we can't take them totally lightly. We need to beat them in both games if we can. If we get a split, that's probably what will happen. But if we can beat them for both games, that'll be really good. But if we lose both games, I'm going to be like, yeah, Nick broke this team. He broke this team before the season even ended. Idiot. Let's see. Nameless is saying, I'm surprised of your opinion regarding Udoka's ability to reform his act, considering that you are somebody that has successfully overcome an addiction, Lex. Yeah, well, I that's the thing. I understand the mentality of the addict's mind. And in some ways, that's what worries me with him. But listen, once again, the end all be all for me. And the first saying that I have as a Raptor freak is trust in Masai. And if Masai does his vetting and he knows Ime Udoka very closely, and he says he trusts him, then I will trust him because I trust Masai. And that's how I look at the whole thing. I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't recommend it. In fact, I don't want him to go get him. But if it does end up turning out this way, well, I'll have to go with it because, once again, the most important thing we do is we trust Masai. And if Masai thinks it'll work and he has no problem with him coming here, then I have to be the same way. But it's not who I would choose. I would stay as far away from him as possible, no matter what. That there's probably a better option. Random gamers here. Good to see Philly fan coming in. Let's see how he's being. Hopefully he's not rubbing it in too bad. Sorry guys, I know y'all really wanted that one, but at least they showed heart till the end. I have full faith y'all will make the playoffs and maybe even shock some teams. Thank you, Random Gamer. That's a nice comment to make. You guys were the better team last night, especially in the second quarter. That quarter absolutely destroyed us. We had not let a team score that many points in a quarter all season. So congratulations. And the fact that we did that and let you guys score so many points and still made it close near the end to a degree is an accomplishment. But you guys deserve to win the game, and a good, well done game for you guys. You win the season series 3-1, and you're on your way. Listen, I'm not going to be a total hater with you guys. I can't stand Joel in a lot of ways, but I do like a lot of people on your team. That I can't have a lot of respect for some people on the Philadelphia team. Smooth Brown Man saying, if Toronto does hire Udoka, expect them to aggressively pursue Jaylen Brown. Nick checked out on the team. You don't do what he did yesterday and go public. Yeah, I can't disagree with Smooth in any of this. This would be a very interesting development because we do know more and more that just like Nick Nurse is causing a dumpster fire for us, Jaylen Brown's been causing dumpster fires for the Celtics on their run this season too. Everything Jaylen's been saying and acting like recently has been such a heartbreak for Celtics fans in all kinds of different ways. You can tell he's disenchanted with this team. He's sick of his place as second banana behind Tatum, and he's sick of all the bullshit with the fans to a degree at this point in Boston. And that the writing's on the wall with him. And I think Smooth putting these two together and making this assumption is not that far off. It would take something like trading Siakam straight up for Jaylen Brown, but it could happen. Seriously, that's the kind of level of player. They're very equal. That it could be like that. I don't know if the Celtics would want to do that, but listen, what he's saying is very possible because we know that there's a good connection between those two. But let's not get a couple steps ahead. We got to see, first of all, what's going to happen with the coach situation. And then maybe we can speculate on the possibility of Jaylen Brown being in a Raptors jersey. Isaac Campbell saying Nick Nurse may have played into being set up and perhaps was honest to a fault. Nick Nurse has always operated with the best of intentions. I will judge him on that, not a one-off mistimed emotional outpouring. It's tough. I mean, you can't make mistakes like this. It's just like in a big game. You can't make a mistake with a turnover and then you lose the game. Well, in some ways, he made a turnover at a very key time. If the season is a game, this is like the last clutch minutes of the season, of the game, like 5 minutes ago in the fourth quarter, and Nick Nurse just made a huge turnover. Is how I look at this. I mean, I know Isaac, in some ways, there's so many things he's done and ingratiated himself with us, but this is a big no-no. He's such a smart dude. And if one of the players had done something like this, just like what he did, he'd be pissed off at them. So in some ways, we got to hold him to the same kind of standards. This was very poor timing, very miscalculated move, and selfish. In some ways, all you can say what he did is kind of selfish in a way. I understand it's tough. And hey, have your people you talk to behind the scenes privately that you can unload your emotional burdens, but not the press. The press is not your friend, Nick. And this whole situation isn't either. You kind of did yourself a disservice. In some ways, I don't know if this may backfire and this may not actually help you. This may actually hurt you more than it helps you in the end. Nameless is saying it could be that the whole league has got his playbook. Once Nick Nurse's assists got dispersed around the league, the gig was up. I don't even think it's that. I think it's just more that, maybe just like with Casey, we hit the ceiling of what we can do with him. that in some ways we've changed the kind of team we are. When Nick took the team over, we were at a high level and we were just this close to being a championship. And we did. We put it over the top. Well, the next year we were also a very high caliber team and he coached it very well. But then we went to Tampa and Tampa was a disaster. And in some ways, he's not a good coach for a team that's 500. He's not a good coach for a developing team like Casey's a good coach. It's almost like we needed to revert back to Casey in the last 3 years and that we'd get more out of our guys and developing them with Casey at this point than Nick. Because Nick is a much better, this team is already almost finished. I'm just going to put the cherry on top and the trimmings and make it look real pretty and get you to the promised land. So it may be that we need to revert back to a development coach like a Dwayne Casey. Find a different guy that's better for that stage of your franchise at this point. That may be part of the factoring in. That Nick Nurse is an advanced coach for winning at the highest level when you're already been winning. But if you're trying to get out of the mud and you're 500 and you're learning and you're developing, he's not a good coach for that. That could be the truth. That could be part of it right there. Let's see. Monique is saying, if we do bring in another coach from the outdoors, and that is a big if, give me Monty Williams and house, of course, Earl Watson. I don't know if Monty Williams is going to go anywhere from Phoenix, but, once again, I don't like speculating about coaches that are presently in jobs. I feel like that is, people have done that to us over the years, and I hate it. I hate it. If this dude already has a job and he's in there already, I don't like speculating about him. Now, if they're assistants underneath people, yeah, speculate about them. But if it's like Rick Carlisle or Eric Spoelstra or Monty Williams or, Billy Donovan, people like that, you don't. They're already in a job. And I don't like talking that way. I mean, is Monty in a bad situation there? Maybe. The things with DeAndre Ayton didn't get sorted out. And the front office of the Phoenix Suns is all messed up. But in some ways, why did we want Monty? We can just have Earl. Let's just have Earl. Nameless is saying, has the league adapted to all Nick Nurse's schemes? Did the Rico runs this summer hurt us? Teaching players how we are and train and how to beat us? It's got to be Earl or you'll lose him too. Capiche? In some ways, I think part of it is this. We talked about how the league is so much more weighted towards the offense now. The three-point shot is so important that in some ways, Nick Nurse's philosophies of defense are not good in this league anymore. And then in some ways, maybe that's another reasoning that Masai's like not totally happy with the direction of the league in general, with how it coexists with Nick Nurse's coaching philosophies. That in some ways, maybe he's seen the signs on the wall that Nick is not a good enough offensive coach to get as much out of his team as he needs to. Obviously, because we're not seeing good offensive outputs by our team at all. We see stagnant periods where they don't score anything. We see very poor shooting percentages. We see just poor execution and poor play calling. And that in some ways, maybe he needs to get somebody who's better with the new trends of the NBA, with the weight into offense. And maybe it is partly taking away this crazy defensive scheme that Nick Nurse makes them work so hard on. That maybe there is more of a balance between offense and defense that can be found by a new coach, where the Raptors can be more effective at winning by putting a little bit more energy and weight into the offense and not running themselves so ragged on the defensive side. See, this is what happens, Nick. You open in Pandora's box, and somebody like me, who could be your biggest ally and biggest proponent of putting stuff out there that makes it sound like good things are good and protect you, to turn around and say, look, these are all the ways maybe we could get better because you have weaknesses. And that's kind of where I'm at this point. I also wonder about Rico Hines on this team. I love Rico. I think Rico's great and everything, but I think in some ways, I don't know. In some ways, I get a weird feeling from him. He's been on a Sacramento team that was really bad for many years, and now he's come to our team and it's bad. In some ways, I like Rico, and Rico's great for his runs in the summer. But maybe he's not a good assistant coach for you to have on your team. Maybe there's some unspoken shit that happens with him. Maybe he starts shit on the down low. We don't even know it. It's fishy that the Sacramento Kings have finally broken their playoff drought the year after Rico leaves their coaching staff. I put 2 and 2 together in some ways. I love Rico and I want him to be around. And if Earl's going to be the number one and the main coach for us, I'd love, of course, Rico to still be there. But in some ways, I'm wondering, is he a factor in all this confusion and bad stuff? Like I know he's a good dude and he says a lot of stuff, but there's some things about Rico Hines also that are a little bit unsettling as far as things with him, in different ways. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too far, grasping at straws. Smooth saying, Nurse has checked out. I'm not emotionally invested in the rest of the season. I look forward to the next coach and what comes next. There you go. All right. See, Smooth's done. He's like, if he's clocking out and checking out himself, why the fuck should we? And seriously, that's kind of what you did, Nick, yesterday. For us diehards who were still holding out hope and wondering, well, you kind of killed our hopes for the postseason. Even the little slim Cinderella chance has been fucking stomped on and put out by your press conference yesterday. Lux is saying Gary should be traded. All these random sick days and bruised thigh or elbow injuries. Get your soft ass off this team. Missing 2 weeks for a boo boo. Lux is not mincing words. Very strong opinion on Gary on this. In some ways, I wonder about how hurt guys are when they sit and they take too much time off. The way Nick has acted about this in interviews, he makes it seem like he doesn't take Gary's injury very seriously and that he thinks he's kind of poo-pooing it and sitting out like this. He made it seem like he's like, yeah, he's kind of annoyed with him. It's like, I don't know when he's going to be back. I mean, he may not even be back for the rest of the season. I'm telling you, there may be some Klutch shenanigans going on right now with our team. Bullshit with Klutch clients doing bullshit things in certain ways. Jody's here. Good to see Jody White. Yep, good pick, Nameless. Earl seems opposite of Nurse. So calm and definitely respected by the players. G League coach for Jazz. Really high on Scott Morrison, Canadian basketball lifer. Okay, that's another name, Scott Morrison, Canadian and a basketball lifer. Okay, he's a G League coach for the Jazz. Okay, so a couple of different names out there. There's probably a lot of different people that Masai's got on a short list. Once again, he's smart. He's scouting everything. He may not have thought, okay, Nick, I'm gonna have to replace Nick anytime soon, but now he has to, and maybe he has contingency plans and contingency schemes of looking at different people that may be available. And Udoka may be on that list for sure. I like Earl Watson. That would be my pick. Some people are saying bring back Jerry Stackhouse at this point. I'm like, what the fuck? You want to bring Jerry all the way back at this point? Maybe. He is familiar with us in certain ways. And some of the G League guys that were around when he coached, like Fred and Pascal, those guys were around when he was coaching them. Let's see. Nameless saying the players have to remain professional because your true character is measured when times are tough, not pleasant. It's easy to be nice when things are well. Well, that's what I'm saying. They need to all do that. And even if they're lying to us, just keep it like, yeah, the house isn't on fire. Just fucking go forward with the rest of the season. We're almost done. Let's get through it. This has been a nightmare season. This is just the latest nightmare right at the end of it of bullshit. And yeah, it's kind of like just go ahead and fool yourself till the end of it and get through it, and the season will be over. And then fucking deal with all your shit. Take your week off or take your weeks off, Nick, as you said. Seymour saying Embiid missed Denver game, but was healthy due to hand us a loss. I'm sick of the dude. Well, I have no problem with him missing that game. It is what it is. In fact, he's missed that game for a few years in a row now. It is what it is. It is like he's dodging Jokic, but I don't believe that either. But whatever. I mean, I'm not worried about all that as much. Nameless is saying, "Oh God, no. In an in-season tournament like that god awful All-Star game, no thanks. Well, this will be different. This will be way better than the All-Star game because these games will count doubly. They'll count as regular season games like any regular season game does, but in some ways they'll count even more because they'll count towards a record that gets you a seeding in an in-season tournament that will happen in December. So in some ways they're spicing up early season games to matter more and not be just treated as another one of 82. It'll be weird to see how they pick those games and how fair it is with everybody. I mean, we'll be able to look at it and be like, what the fuck is this? Or we'll be like, okay, they did a good job. We'll have to find out when it all comes out. I'm very intrigued by this. They had good success with this in the G League the last 2 years. So they like it and they want to try it on the main level where they're going to try it. And they figured out how to do it. It's going to be very interesting. It'll be better than the All-Star game. Trust me. It'll be competitive. MSJ saying everything is fine on the Raps. Maybe they all get along. It's just the future is Scottie and OG, in my opinion. I hope so. I hope everything's all right. We want to get through this transition period possibly with our coach and with not a lot of collateral damage. We really do want to make this smooth, and we hope that we get somebody that is the right candidate for what we need now in the state that our franchise is in right now. Masai Ujiri, we trust you. Continue to do the right things. Seymour saying, like, why can't we beat those damn Sixers? Frustrating. Well, as they said earlier, we beat them last year 3-1. It's just this year they beat us 3-1. It is what it is. They're a very good team, Seymour. There's no slouch and losing to them. Trust me, they're killing everybody. And in fact, we put up a good fight against them, considering we were down by 20 at half. Lux is saying, because Fred's brain turns to mush and Siakam's kill switch gets turned off when they play the Sixers. It's not even the Sixers. It's in any game. Siakam just has a hard time finishing at times. Like I don't like him being our number one. I really, really don't. I'd like him being our second. If he can be our second banana next year, that'd be way better than him being the number one option. That's just me personally. I know some people are like, no, he should be the number one. But me, I'm not into him being the number one. He just doesn't have the right qualities late game to be our number one guy to carry us home. 905 Yada saying, what up, Raptor Freaks? Been a while. Tough game last night. Sixers gave us a lot of opportunities to stay in it. Yeah, we gave them a good fight, and we made it a good game by the end of it. Space Cadet saying, Lux, the reason we lost to them was the second quarter blowout. Not so much about Fred or Pascal. They could have been better, but we probably win if that second quarter doesn't happen. Yeah. All the lapses in the second quarter, that's where we lost the game. That's exactly right. Seymour saying Nick Nurse checked out. Really? Oh my God. Well, guess that's it. Bye, coach. Who's next? McGlure? Earl? See, Seymour's like, I was saying we had a chance, Seymour, but now that Nick has done this, I don't know how much of a chance we have. I'm not going to say that we have a chance anymore just because Nick has, like, in some ways checked out. Seriously. That's what you told us yesterday, Nick, that you're already thinking about taking weeks off in the off season. Well, you probably want to get there faster. And that's why I'm saying, why can I trust you to want to coach as long as possible in the postseason if you're already looking forward to weeks off? That's what you said yesterday. Lux saying, I know why we lost. Didn't put the loss solely on Fred or Siakam. Their brains and heart disappear when playing these guys. They need to get over that mental block and fast. Well, what about last year, Lux, with Fred and him being able to be very skilled and clutch in the games last season? He was very much not having problems with his brain and stuff at the end of the game. I think that once again, as I said earlier, Nick fucks up because he played him the whole entire second half. You need to give them a break in there somewhere so they can be a little bit fresh for the stretch run at the end. The other team is benching their starters and giving them rest so they can be kind of fresh for the last 5 minutes. Meanwhile, we're riding our damn starters the whole entire 2 quarters at the end. And you wonder why they're tired for the last 5 minutes? Well, it's because they didn't get to sit on the bench at all since halftime. And that is a big problem I have with what Nick did with Pascal and Fred last night. They didn't come out of the game after halftime. And you wonder why they're ineffective at the end. That is exactly why. Seymour saying Scottie and OG are our future. Yeah, I love that. I'm all with that. Cool Cat saying, I think the Lakers with LeBron, he is clutch, which is LeBron. That's what I'm saying. That's going to be fishy as fuck to me. You know, we already think that refs are crooked. We think that gambling's ruined the sport. Well, are we going to show that, being a player agent that's actively playing in the league, who owns an agency that has clients on other teams, are able to manipulate the league so that they can get a new coach on the Lakers because of this? That's what I'm saying. This will look so shady and fucked up, NBA, if this shit comes to reality. That Nick Nurse is the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers next season, I'm going to be like, what the fuck is going on? Seymour saying, getting Udoka is a plus. Think about it. Boston is a top team. He took him in this first season. He knows the ins and outs of Boston. We need him to take down top teams. I'm all for Udoka. All right, I'm going to say this, and I'm turning on this quickly. Listen, once again, I'm going to just trust Masai's judgment. If he knows Ime Udoka, and he doesn't feel like he's going to be a toxic problem like he was in Boston, then I will clear him and I'll have no problem with this. And I will agree with everything you're saying here. I've never questioned his coaching ability or his ability to win. and do really well. He had only 1 year of coaching as a head coach, and it was extremely successful. He went to the finals and almost won a championship in his rookie year, just like Nick Nurse did. So in some ways, I could be like, yeah, I can totally get behind this logic of him as a coach. There's nothing about him as a coach on the court in the job that I don't like. It's all the other stuff around him otherwise. But if Masai does his due diligence, talks to Bobby Webster and thinks, listen, we can get him to not do this and have this and all this on the up in front. And as I said, I don't care if he has extramarital affairs or open marriage and he's having sex with everybody else in Toronto except for anybody who works for our company or our team. I'll be fine with it. I'm not even telling him not to be a player or go out and do what he wants to do. Just don't do it within your job is what I will say. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, this is a really big 180 for me within 24 hours. If you go and watch my stream yesterday, before we heard what Nick said, I said a lot of different things yesterday. Well, I'm having to amend things and go with the changing landscape of what's going on with our team. Monique saying, way to push through another stream despite everything. Raptors forever. You go, Monique. We keep that midnight oil burning, that light of shining up that light for Raptors Nation in a positive way, no matter what crazy confusion and craziness is going on. Seymour saying Raptors for life. That's right. That's exactly what it is right there. This is the heart and soul of what I am passionate about. And for sure, for life, even if it's crazy and weird. Cool Cat saying our next coach will be Adrian Griffin or Earl Watson. Imagine the players learning of Nick's statement after the game. It's a negotiation tactic that Klutch uses. Same thing that Fred did on the podcast. Yeah, I hate that. Like, seriously, it's such a bad message for the players, Nick. You're a horrible leader today. Like, this is horrible leadership. And I'm really pissed off at you. I really am. I hope that I'm sure they knew all this kind of internally already. Some of the stuff that he said publicly to the press. In some ways, they should be in on all this and know the truth already because they're in the middle of it all. So it may not have caught them as surprised as the fan nation. That in some ways that the players may have already known this kind of shit. And that on the download that they've kind of already known that it's like this. It's just Nick didn't need to put it out publicly because once again, he's going to be all over ESPN. He's going to be all over the media in the States. And the speculation noise is going to be crazy. You just decried the speculation noise around the trade deadline for the Raptors. And now you caused a whole bunch of speculation around us because of your stupid ass press conference yesterday. Okay, great job, Nick. Kareem saying, do we have a list of coaches we want for this team not named Udoka? I mean, yeah, Earl Watson to me is the number one candidate. I mean, even an off chance, Trevor Gleason, probably not, because he's been like our offensive coach default in some ways, and he has been a fail in some ways. Our flex offense and offensive stuff has not looked good, and in some ways that's his specialty. I know in some ways Earl Watson's an offensive coach also, but he kind of really works more on the individual level and getting the player to develop more skill offensively. I don't know. We'll have to see, Kareem. Obviously, we're going to have some think tanks this summer on this subject. There will be a Thursday think tank talking about the future coach for the Raptors. Infamous is saying, I hope he isn't going through a divorce. I remember Chuck Swirsky was like this when he was going through marital issues. Man, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't want anything fucked up happening with Nick Nurse personally in his life. I don't want him to have tragedy or loss of a loved one, any kind of issues with his marriage or anything like that. Obviously, no, we don't want any of that. I think I've seen him with his wife since then, though, and everything's fine. So I don't know. That's pure speculation. But I know that Chuck, in some ways, he had to leave the Raptors to go work for the Bulls. He degraded himself, not degraded, but he demoted himself from TV analyst to radio analyst, partly because he had to move back to the States for reasons because of his family. He did not want to leave Canada, and he was really happy being on the Raptors color team, but on the Raptors commentary team. But he had to leave for family reasons, and not necessarily that he wanted to, but he did it for people in his family. That's the whole reason why he's on the Bulls, guys. He never wanted to leave Toronto, but he did it. He sacrificed for his family. And I know to this day he didn't necessarily want to do it, but he did do it, and that's why he's over there. Isaac saying, look at the dynamic changing of acquiring one player in Poeltl, and we still haven't seen the full roster all at once. Nick Nurse will clarify his comment, and we will beat the Hornets. Also, Scottie Barnes is better than ever. All right, Isaac's continuing to shine the optimistic light and still trying to find a way home for Nick after what he did yesterday. I don't know. We'll have to see if he does an interview today, in a practice interview, or maybe a pregame interview tomorrow where he does walk back a little bit of what he said yesterday. I don't know. I would be very interested and curious to see. But he kind of said important things. Like he's already looking forward to rest. He said he's got to see where his relationship with the team is, with the organization. That is a huge fucking red flag right there, where he's saying he has to see where his relationship is with the Raptors. That is scary to me, Isaac. And that makes me think that the writing's on the wall, he's done. The fact that he's already questioning where his relationship is with the front office and the team. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. As much as you're trying to make it sunny and bright for tomorrow, I hope you're right, but I don't think you will be. Monique is saying infamous. Chuck is married now, if you didn't know, by the way, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know what happened with Chuck's married life or anything like that. I thought it had something to do with one of his kids, was the reason why he went back to the States, not his wife. But I may be wrong. There may be that infamous knows more than I do. Let me cook saying, I'm sure you covered all this, but I saw you guys are 3-1 against the Heat, 2-1 against Chicago, and 1-2 against the Hawks. But could have easily been 2-1 the other way. I feel confident in the play-in, Raptor Free. Well, I would if our coach wasn't fucking being an idiot right now. I mean, seriously. Yeah, I have no confidence in us in the postseason at this point. Nick Nurse is waving the white flag, and I hate that. I hate that. Before even giving our guys a chance, the fucking coach is tapping out. What the fuck? Shane saying, blame the whole season on Otto. Shane Waters, you go, West Coast Raptor freak, holding it down in BC. He wants to blame Otto Porter Jr. It makes me feel better anyway. Man came here to fake a toe injury and take a paternity leave with his Canadian in-laws. He just wanted that baby to be born in Canada. That's all he wanted, Shane. All right, let me make sure I'm covering everything that I wanted to cover today. Once again, standings check. We are still tied with Atlanta. They lost also last night. Thank God. And they didn't get the leap over us. Thank God. And, honestly, Monique is right. If they can lose today, and we will be ahead of them. So let's see if hopefully, are they playing today? I don't think they are playing today. Unless maybe that's not the whole schedule. I don't know. We do need them to lose their next game tomorrow. They're probably playing tomorrow. They're not playing today. But yeah, standings watch. Miami lost also, so they're closer to us. Chicago did win, so they're nipping at our heels by a game behind. But we're pretty much exactly where we've been. So we need Atlanta to lose, and we need to win. Basically, that's it. Really sad and disappointed in Nick Nurse and what he said. Very excited about the collective bargaining agreement between the Players Association and the NBA to get things set up and okay. There's no stoppage of play in that. Once again, the Raptors lose to the Sixers, losing the season series 3-1. A tough game, a game where they had one really bad second quarter, and then they tried to fight back in the second half, and they only let the Sixers score 40 points after halftime, but still not enough to get there, losing by 7. 3 stars of the game, Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, and Jakob. Disappointed in Fred and Pascal, but blaming Nick for playing them the whole entire second half. Nothing from the bench, but a little bit of a bright spot from Koloko. Otherwise, really mismanaged bench by Nick also. See, this is how I do it. If you're not good with me, Nick, I start coming after you and blaming everything on you. As far as the Sixers, fantastic effort by James Harden. He was the player of the game overall. Joel Embiid, solid, but only held to 25. That's an accomplishment by the Raptors for sure, considering what he's been putting on most people in the league. A great bench effort by them, in particular Paul Reed. Just a solid effort by the Sixers in that win. The team stats were very much good for them. They shot a blistering pace. We slowed them down the second half and got them down to 56. We did make 9 more field goal attempts, but we still only made 1 more field goal than them. The three-pointers were a disaster, 8 of 26 for the Raptors, and they got 12 three-pointers at 39% from the field. Free throws. We did not get to the free throw line as much as them, but we probably should have. The referees robbed us of a bunch of free throw opportunities, whether it was Koloko in the act of shooting on that one play or people going over the back of Chris Boucher late on an out of bounds play. You know, there were some missed free throws that should have been given to us by David Guthrie and the crew. We didn't shoot well at the free throw line anyway, though. We were out rebounded by 3, but we did get 14 offensive rebounds. We did get 26 assists, and I did like all the assists that was going on. But, the turnovers were a problem too. We had really good turnover numbers at the halftime, but in the second half, we turned the ball way too much over, and we got too close to them in turnover totals. 13 turnovers for us, 18 for them. We only had 6 at halftime. So I think we only had 3 at halftime. And Nick made note of that after the game, that the turnovers in the second half were a huge part of why we lost. Points in the paint, we lost that also. So, yeah, just not a great effort in the second quarter. It destroyed our chances to win. It is what it is. Oh, well. Let's see. Tom Duke is laughing at Shane, and he's saying, great stream, W's. Let's fucking go Raptors. You go, Tom Duke. Let's just keep rooting this team positively as Raptor freaks would. Cool Cat saying also Scottie's development is showing growth at the end of the season, which is great to see. Curious to see what we do during summer draft and changes to the team. I'm calm about changes. I'm glad to see that Cool Cat is not freaking out. And that is good. You know, in some ways, once again, change is an opportunity. And if things are going to be the way they are, so be it. It is what it is. We can only control what we can control. And Nick, you could have controlled what you said yesterday, but you didn't. And now we have a dumpster fire. And I blame you completely for this. You want to be the fall guy, the scapegoat for this horrible season this year? Well, you just put a big, huge target on yourself for it. And now, people like me, the Raptors freak, are going to be coming after you and saying that it's your fault this season. I love dumping everything nice and tidy on one person, just like the NBA dumped it all on Tim Donaghy. Well, you're going to be our scapegoat because you've signaled that you're willing to be that, even if it's not totally fair to you. Well, I like to keep things nice and tidy, and let's just make you the patsy. That's how it is. All right, y'all. Tomorrow, preview for the first game against Charlotte. 1 o'clock game tomorrow afternoon in the afternoon. So we better be ready and early to get here early to do the preview ahead of that game. I'll be back at 9:30 in the morning. Yeah. Isaac saying only big W's for the chat. Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate every single one of y'all. I appreciate you being here. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll be back tomorrow. Let's go Raptors. Yeah, we're going to still win.